In one of these houses, a child is crying, desperately calling for his mother and saying that he wants to go to her. This woman addresses her husband, calling him Morn, and asks him to leave their daughter alone. While the woman promises him that she will help him pay off all the debts herself, the little girl continues to call her. Well, Morn says that what his wife earns is not enough for even a couple of games, because Shine is insatiable. The man says that if they don't pay him back by tomorrow, this man will sell them all off, piece by piece. Out of despair and anger, he slaps his wife, ordering her to get out of his way immediately. While the woman is trying to come to her senses due to the force of the blow, the girl again starts calling for her mother. Finding the strength to somehow rise, the woman asks in a weak voice for her daughter to be returned to her. Her insides are burned with such resentment that the woman gets a second wind and calls her husband a bastard. Flying towards him like an enraged cat, the woman again orders him to return her daughter to her. Taking advantage of the moment of surprise, she not only snatches the child from her husband's hands, but also knocks him down. Not only does the man stumble, losing his precarious balance, but he also steps on a bottle. All he has time to do is wave his arms awkwardly in the air, and a puzzled sound comes out of the man's chest. Before Morn's head hits the floor, his eyes fill with boundless malice. For a few long moments, there is perfect silence in the room. During this time, the blood that began to flow from the broken head grows into an ever larger puddle. The woman hugs her daughter very tightly to prevent the little one from seeing the unsightly sight. And then the space is cut by the sob of a girl who begins to cry and say that she is very scared. Mom, addressing Joy in a gentle voice, asks her not to cry because everything is already over. The woman continues to calm the child, telling the girl that everything is fine, and it works. But the calm doesn't last long. The next moment, the sound of a door being knocked down is heard. The man who burst inside addresses Morn, saying that it is time to pay off debts. He does not immediately comprehend the picture that appears before him, but when he does, he becomes puzzled. The man looks at the corpse for a while, trying to figure out what's going on, and then chuckles nervously. He asks Morn what kind of show he was putting on, assuming that he was just pretending to be dead. By calling the deceased a paleface, the man says that he must pay even if he is dead. His gaze moves up to find Morn's wife, and he asks her if he is telling the truth. The woman starts screaming, calling the intruders bandits and scum, telling them to leave immediately. Random passers-by are attracted by the noise and look inside, driven by curiosity. Asking them what they were staring at, the man asks everyone to leave and calls himself legal debt collectors. One of the people asks since when debt collectors have been kidnapping children, and where is the law? The man, calling him Grandpa, in turn asks if he is sure he wants to intervene. And then he explains that this is fraught with the possibility that his guys might come to him for money. Hearing this threat, not only he, but also others immediately find reasons to leave. Once the onlookers have moved a sufficient distance away, the man turns again to Morn's wife. He invites her to continue where they left off, but the woman tells him and his henchmen to stay away. Shielding her daughter with her body, she says that she will kill anyone who approaches them. This only makes the thug laugh. Throwing his head back, he bursts into mad laughter. The man moves from his place and begins to talk about what happened when he first started playing with knives. Intercepting the woman's hand, he says that Morn's wife was not even in the plans back then. Bending down, the man offers to show how to properly handle a knife. He makes one short swing with the weapon, and the woman screams out loudly. His henchmen like this idea and begin to praise their boss's technique. As the piece of fabric falls to the floor, the man admires the fruits of his labor. He carefully examines the woman's body, after which he begins to laugh. The man compliments Morn, saying that he knows how to choose women. He doesn't even have time to finish his sentence when he feels something flying towards him. Feeling the pain from the bite, the man growls through his teeth and then gives an order. He orders the girl to be removed from him, but only carefully, since Shine forbade harming her. When one of his men pulls the baby away, she starts calling for her mother again. Fearing for her child's life, the woman desperately screams out her daughter's name. She promises to do anything just to get her girl released, because she is still just a baby. The man says that she can't bargain with him, because he will take whatever he wants anyway. The woman asks him if they are not afraid of heavenly punishment for all this evil, and the man laughs, suggesting that the heavens should immediately fall to stop him. At that very moment, somewhere high in the sky, a powerful clap of thunder is heard. The lightning that lit up the sky with him strikes straight into the roof of Morn and his family's house and passes through it. Struck by the amazing coincidence, the bandits freeze, frozen in a deep stupor. Their leader also feels confused and begins to regret the words he spoke. The woman is also impressed by what happened, and a frightened cry escapes from her chest. But it's not just that, because something else happens along with the lightning that bursts into the house. Seeing the one who grabbed the intruder by the hand, the woman calls out to the gods, at the same time dropping the name of her husband. The gang leader is no less taken aback than she is, and he also absent-mindedly says Morn's name. And his opponent mentally notes that his body is on the threshold of death, and the situation is catastrophic. The man tells the gang leader that he is giving him one chance, and that is to let the child go. And this is the first condition. According to the second, the bandits must immediately leave this house. After this statement, perfect silence reigns in the room. Before the bandits had time to recover from the previous shock, another one happened. The leader comes to his senses before everyone else, bursting into laughter and asking if Morn has gone crazy. Gripping his blade tighter, he adds how dare his interlocutor tell him to get lost. The next moment, the man steps forward, saying that he will kill Morn first. But his opponent doesn't allow him to do this, intercepting his other hand as well. When a man's eyes light up with an unnatural light, he mentally mentions the divine assembly, and he adds that he will put all his efforts into making his plans come true. To everyone's surprise, the muscles in my weak arms begin to bulge, undergoing miraculous metamorphoses, and his opponent understands that something is wrong because the tenacious grip becomes several times stronger. It continues to intensify until the man begins to scream, sharply pulling his hand away. Despite the fact that this man treated her badly, the woman screams in fear. His henchmen also feel uneasy when they see their boss so pathetic. He turns to his opponent, trying to say something, but so far he's only mumbling. Finally, the bandits come to their senses and begin to threaten Morn. They advise him not to raise his hand against the boss. But the man pays no attention to these threats at all, striking his opponent. The gang leader, not expecting such a turn of events, flies back. It is not only he who turns out to be the one who did not foresee such an outcome, and this man also pays the price. One of the subordinates rushes to his boss and notes that they dared to attack him. And this man turns to his brothers, telling them to grab Morn. But only one of those who was addressed was more than satisfied with what he saw. He sighed hoarsely, and then, together with his friend, he runs away, afraid of ending up in his boss's place. He then recalls the devil, and says that there is no honor left in this world. Yet his gaze finds his remaining brother, and he says that there is a place for loyalty in this world. The man tells him to attack Morn, saying that if he returns victorious, he will promote him. But then the boy's courage quickly melts away. He runs away, saying that he needs to warn Shine about everything. And while the gang leader is recovering from the monstrous betrayal, a shadow hangs over him. The man turns around cautiously, as if this would delay the inevitable. But this does not save him, and he screams and curses. Addressing Morn in a frightened voice, the bandit reminds him of what will happen if he offends Shine. But the man doesn't care, and he again drives his opponent out of the house. As the bandit straightens up, he finally agrees to fulfill this request, and he runs away even when he is told not to dare run away. For a moment there is absolute silence in the room. It is broken by Morna's wife, who cautiously addresses the man by name. Sometime later, Joy's screams for her mother echo through the house again. The woman apologizes to her, agreeing that she made the girl worry, and the man advises the ladies to pack their things and leave because the bandits will come back for them. They hesitate, looking at him expectantly, as if this conversation was supposed to continue. But the man looks silently, not intending to add anything, and then the woman speaks. She asks what will happen to him in that case, trying to hide the feelings that are bursting out. Her interlocutor begins to say that he still has something left, but suddenly stops. His eyes widen in unbearable pain, and a strangled wheeze escapes from his throat. Falling to his knees from impotence, the man curses under his breath. He knows what caused this state. The one currently in Morn's body has exceeded his physical capabilities, and the wounds that he held back with the energy of the spirit cannot be healed. Turning to her husband, the woman asks him what is wrong with him and asks him not to frighten her. The man, with the last of his strength, raises his gaze to her and asks her to help him heal. At first, the woman says that they no longer have money for the hospital, but immediately finds a way to get it. She already says that she'll go and borrow from her neighbor, but the man says that's not necessary. Pulling the woman towards him, he asks her to simply do what he says. Seeing something new for herself, Joy watches her parents with wide eyes. And then, filled with enthusiasm, the girl asks her mother what they are doing. The woman becomes embarrassed, and, turning to her daughter, tries to come up with a plausible explanation. The only thing that comes to mind is to say that Mom and Dad are going to play a little. This turns out to be a mistake, as Joy becomes even more inspired, saying that she wants to play too. The woman adds a stern tone to her voice as she tells her daughter it's time for her to go to bed. Realizing she's chosen the right tactic, she sends Joy back to bed, but softens a little. The girl draws an interjection, a sign of thoughtfulness, and then it dawns on her. Obediently rushing to the bed, Joy asks if she needs to cover her head. Her mother again tells the girl to go to bed and not get up until she calls her. The little girl does not object. On the contrary, she obediently follows her mother's orders. At this point, the man invites the woman to begin, and she, still a little embarrassed, agrees. She is surprised by the care with which the men's hands are placed on her waist. A moan escapes the woman's lips, and she wonders how she can even think about this now. The kiss also comes as a surprise, because the man acts as if it wasn't him at all. But at the same time, the woman thinks that if it weren't for him, their entire house would already be in ruins. Meanwhile, the man resorts to a technique called the Divine Cave Classic. It is from the Yin-Yang healing section, the second of which stimulates the essence. The man mentally pronounces the words that the streams of desire form an elixir, and thanks to this, the flesh is restored, the bones are fused, and death itself is reversed. Even though they have only recently started, the man is already feeling this wonderful effect. And somewhere else, a man's fist swiftly cuts through the air, striking. He hits this punching bag, which makes a strange sound. While the sports equipment swings, the man relaxes his tense muscles. As he steps aside, a human cough comes from the punching bag. This man is Shine, and he talks about how great it is to let off steam by beating up a human carcass. A weakened voice comes from the punching bag, reminding the man of their agreement. Shine says everyone on the street knows he keeps his word. But if he doesn't let off steam, he will have no choice but to sell the sufferer's family for organs. The man inside the punching bag is angry, threatening that Shine will still get what he deserves for all the evil he has done. And while Shine only laughs in response to this, the new arrivals call out to him. Addressing his leader, the leader of this gang says that they have failed to achieve their goal. The man's gaze changes, the smile slips from his face, and for several long moments he remains sullenly silent. After this, Shine clarifies how well these people know his demands. The man says that this girl was urgently demanded by his great patron. Hitting the sports equipment with all his might, he calls his people untalented. They look at the spectacle before them with apprehension because they are afraid of finding themselves in the unfortunate man's place. Looking at the fruits of his creations, the man says that there is no room for error. Shine asks his subordinates if they are really incapable of dealing with even a pathetic pimp. One of them begins to hastily recount what happened in Morn Ginger's house. Hearing the incredible story of how a man came to life like a zombie, Shine remains silent. He only speaks again after the part where the man broke the gang leader's arm. And Shine, closing the distance between himself and his interlocutor, asks how this happened. Intercepting the man's healthy hand, he asks if Morn did it this way at first, and the man tenses. And Shine begins to squeeze his fingers hard, asking if it was like that later. A cry of despair and pain escapes the man, but he does not dare to express his feelings. Shine says he doesn't need useless people among his guys, and orders them to get rid of this man. The offender is immediately dragged away, and he, turning to his now former boss, begs for mercy. Shine tells the rest of his henchmen to take their weapons, saying that they will all go after the girl together. Meanwhile, heavy, ragged breathing can be heard in Morn's house. This is how hard his wife breathes after active work. She is so tired that she does not have the strength to sit up straight, so the woman lowers herself onto the man. The man, meanwhile, thanks the woman for saving him. And the woman, pausing between words, almost affirmatively says that he is not her husband. The woman says that he has never been so gentle and has never caused such strange feelings in her. And then, finding the strength to pull away, she asks the man who he is. The man sitting in front of her confesses that he is an immortal celestial being who has descended here because of a disaster. He tells his interlocutor that Morn is his mortal incarnation, living among people. Due to the serious wound, his soul flew away, and the celestial was able to take control of the man's body. The woman stutters when she asks her interlocutor whether he is a god. The celestial being, unlike her, responds with a clear and confident consent. Joy interrupts the conversation, asking her mom if she and her dad are finished playing. The girl asks permission to get up, explaining that she is very hungry. The woman allows her daughter to stand up, saying that she will cook something for her now. The man apologizes. As soon as he finishes his sentence, his stomach and the stomach of the woman sitting next to him begin to rumble. The woman shyly asks if immortals need to eat too, and he jokingly calls it rude. After this, she gets up and asks the man to wait, intending to cook for him too. A few minutes later, when the water boils, the woman begins to cook. Joy is excited that they will be eating noodles today. The girl wants noodles with an egg. Her mother adds one. The celestial being watching them thinks that he chose the path of oblivion in his youth. He has long since given up on love, and his heart should be at peace, but for some reason, he feels happy. The man doesn't know exactly why this is, but he guesses that this is how home feels. And although this feeling is new to him, the celestial says out loud that he considers it magnificent. A peaceful existence and idol are shattered in an instant by a deafening blow. Finding himself inside Morn's house, Shine sarcastically wishes its inhabitants good morning. As soon as she notices the uninvited guests, the woman screams, her fingers unclenching against her will. However, the plate, which is rapidly flying to the floor, is not destined to meet with a hard surface. The celestial asks the intruders who they are, and the woman answers, naming them Shayna. At the mention of his name, the man chuckled smugly and found his target with his gaze. Hiding behind her mother, Joy turns to her and tells her that she is scared. The celestial asks them not to be afraid, saying that he has fully recovered and will protect them. Shine approaches the man, asking him if he is the pimp Morn who works for the old man. The celestial agrees, saying that if they leave right now, perhaps he will spare them. Having heard what he wanted, Shine immediately takes action. This leaves the celestial being perplexed. He cannot believe that this guy is like this. Shine comes at him so fast that the man barely has time to block. And yet, although this softens the blow, it does not completely relieve the Celestial from unpleasant sensations. Shine says that minor characters die because they talk too much. The woman cries out in alarm, calling the Celestial being her husband. Joy also calls him daddy. Shine is at this point amazed that his henchman couldn't deal with such trash. After he gave the order to take the goods, one of his subordinates asks what to do with the adult. The man allows them to do whatever they want with her, and when they are finished, they bury the body. The person speaking forward thanks his boss for the award. As he approaches the woman, the man begins to laugh nastily. She calls her husband again, hugging her daughter tighter, and the girl also calls for her father. The rapist maniac fails to approach the woman. Instead, he lets out short grunts. And the next moment it flies away so far that no one present expected it. When the Celestial lands gracefully on all fours, the woman calls him Morn. By that point, Shine, who had already started smoking and calling his opponent a kid, said that it was not bad. The Celestial notes mentally that his opponent has the strength of a superhuman. The man notes that his entire body emits some kind of strange aura. The half-smoked cigarette flies to the side along with Shine's mockingly evil laugh. The Celestial is momentarily puzzled by what he sees next. Shine gets in front of him too quickly and admits that he underestimated him. And yet, the Celestial being manages to come to his senses in time and force his body to move. But this doesn't impress his opponent. He changes his trajectory right in the moment. The Celestial understands perfectly well where Shine is aiming, so he is forced to reorganize as well. To prevent a man from attacking a mother and daughter, he exposes himself to attack. This ends tragically, and the Celestial being mentally acknowledges the fact of his injury. His opponent laughs, mockingly saying that he thought he heard a crunch. As he raises his fist for another punch, Shine begins talking about punching bags. He says he believes that such projectiles from living people are better than all others. He is pleased that the Celestial has endured 80% of his power and asks him to wait a little longer. The Celestial thinks about how fast, strong, and accurate his opponent's blows are. And only he allows the thought that he won't be able to bear it, remembers that he can use something. What distinguishes this technique from others is that it does not require vital energy to use. Another advantage is that the body does not necessarily have to be strong. This technique is called divine thought, a demonstration of martial arts. An instantaneous creation of a 10-year mental space by divine consciousness occurs, and also fighting the enemy while practicing martial arts in a high-speed mental simulation. Approaching the Celestial, Shine mocks his fighting stance. He asks if his opponent is really going to parody the cartoon. At this moment, the Celestial being thinks about 10 years of practice. He talks about mastering boxing skills and channeling his inner strength. When his opponent's behavior changes, Shine wonders in his mind what is going on. Meanwhile, the Celestial turns sharply towards him, moving on to the next stage of his technique. He mentally says that over 20 years, he has mastered the art of merging energy and technology. After the punch hits its target, Shine calls his opponent a bastard. Not wanting to let him get away with such liberties, the man says that he will destroy him. But his opponent has already intercepted the necessary wave and is not going to let go so easily. After 30 years of practice, he is already a master of boxing who puts free will into the fight. And since the best defense is a good attack, the Celestial uses hegemonic strike. The subordinates cannot believe that their unquestioning leader was beaten, so they become scared. But still, the rage and devotion to Shine is stronger, which becomes clear in the next moment. The Celestial being moves on to a complete understanding of the martial path, which is 50 years of practice. And he just scatters those who stand in his way, as if it costs him nothing. Shine stutters when asking his opponent what he's doing. The Celestial remains silent, even when the man asks him if he knows who is standing behind him. During the pause, the newcomer activates the Celestial Eye, and Shine opens his mouth again. The man says that this person is a big shot, that his opponent should not mess with. He also warns that it is better not to touch him, but his voice becomes uncertain at that moment. At the moment when the Celestial being removes the object from the man, he makes a long wheezing sound. As the process nears its end, Shine's gaze becomes more conscious. Having settled on the floor, he still asks the Celestial being in a weak voice how he found out about everything. The same one, not paying attention to his interlocutor, expresses a belated understanding of how everything is. The token begins to crackle and partially glow, as if the creature depicted on it is coming to life. And indeed, the very next moment a small figure materializes and lets out a roar. She breaks out of her confinement with a war cry, wanting to attack the one in front of her. But he looks at the creature calmly, because he knows that it is not a threat to him. The Celestial calls the creature impudent, and his voice at that moment sounds sharp and unquestioning. From such a pressure of internal force, the creature squeals and moves away, realizing its mistake. And then the Celestial uses the divine power of Nita Great, that is, his own. Under her influence, the creature crawls back into the token, making a long, apologetic sound. No, he laughs, saying that this is where things get interesting. This technique is called Shadow Rock, a technique that involves possessing the spirit of an infant and draining the life out of the ghost. Roughly speaking, Shine is actually 30, but he looks older, and in exchange he gets fighting power. Now no understands why his body is inferior to his at the same peak, because behind it there is an essence of another world. Shine begins to justify himself, saying that they are all just making a living so that he will be spared. Without even listening to the end of this speech, the celestial being tells the man to get lost with his henchmen. He follows them with his eyes until they are all out of sight. Realizing it's all over, Joy rushes to Net, calling him dad. Jumping on the man, the girl says that he is very handsome. The little girl doesn't let him come to his senses after his first outburst and immediately kisses him. A question arises in Net's mind. How can a simple touch of a mortal girl's lips warm the heart so much? To please the child, he asks again if it is true, and Joy answers in the affirmative. The warm moment is interrupted by the girl's mother, turning to her husband and asking him to come with her. She asks if the man just lets Shine go, he won't bring more dangerous people. And immediately after this, the woman suggests that he pack his things. The celestial asks her not to be afraid. He says that he let this man go on purpose. This moment is unclear to the woman, so she directly asks why this was necessary. No, it says that the spiritual aura in the mortal world is currently weak, and it takes time to improve. And the person behind Shine may be useful for their own improvement. The woman again does not understand the celestial being, and asks what they mean. And then the man asks her if she wants to improve herself with him and achieve immortality. Joy asks Net if this means they will be able to fly, and Net confirms it. The girl screams, saying that this is really cool, and she wants to fly with her dad. Her mother asks how she and her daughter can train, and gets an answer. No, he says that Joy has a body with the innate essence of a yin girl, she only needs pills. Hearing that her father will cook them, the little girl asks if they are tasty, and asks to cook them with sugar. The celestial smirks, and says that if she wants sweet pills, then that's what they will be. The girl enjoys it again, and says she doesn't give up sweets. No, he says that the bodies of adults are different, the innate essence has left them, and he names a quick way. The man adds that they have no time to waste, and need to start now to be ready for the fight. The woman carefully asks if it would be too much to train in broad daylight. Joy addresses the adults, telling them that they need to train hard. She herself says that she will go for a walk, and the mother asks the child not to go far. When the girl returns, she asks if it will be enough if she is gone until lunch. And the answer to her is a very eloquent silence. After the child leaves, the woman asks if No wants her to take the same position as before. He starts with unwavering agreement, but ends with an objection, and the woman gasps. At the moment when the man turns her over, placing her in the required position, she asks a question. The woman asks the celestial what he is going to do. He asks her to relax and do what he tells her, but the woman refuses, saying that she cannot. She screams, mentioning her back and saying that it hurts a lot. The man asks her not to worry, assuring her that she will feel better soon. He thinks that the double cultivation method is created for the rejuvenation and flowering of the lotus. And at the moment when the energies of yin and yang mix, the 5 organs are cleansed, and then comes the concealment of the ligaments and the restoration of postpartum light. The woman mentally wonders why her whole body is relaxed and warmth is emanating from it. At that moment, a comparison comes to her mind, and a corresponding sound is heard in her head. The feeling and atmosphere is very similar to her relaxing in a hot spring. So time passes, and night comes, and the city comes to life. A couple sitting at a karaoke bar chooses a song. Having done this, the young people begin to sing, urging their listener to learn to meow. A man puts his whole soul into a song when he sings about how he can purr in front of anyone. He continues to give it his all when Shine bursts in, calling the man Mr. Daniel. He quickly asks his interlocutor whether he brought what he asked for, and returns to the song again. Shine, falling on his face, addresses the young master with the utmost respect and asks him to forgive him. And he continues, saying that he doesn't know what dark arts this brat's father studied, but he became very strong. Shine says that his brothers were with him, and they risked their lives, but they still turned out to be weaker. And now Daniel listens with all his ears, completely distracted from the song. The news inflames him so much that the man becomes unable to control his anger. Shine desperately begs him, asking him to spare him and keep his life. Daniel says that victory and defeat are the everyday occurrences of war, for which he rewards and punishes. The man says that Shine has been working for him for many years, and for all his great achievements, he is entitled to a reward. Daniel throws the girl at his subordinate, mercifully allowing him to take her and have some fun. Stuttering slightly, Shine thanks the young master for this reward. Daniel starts to chuckle ominously. And then he suddenly rushes towards his interlocutor, not giving him time to think. The moment a hand grabs his head, Shine lets out a surprised cry. And already understanding what Daniel is about to do, he addresses him in a rapidly weakening voice. Shine asks his master why he is doing this, and Daniel reminds him of his words about rewarding and punishing. Even though Shine failed to bring the girl to him, he rewarded him for his efforts. However, the man lost the magical artifact that Daniel had given him. This is precisely what led to his punishment. Shine's body begins to shake, and he wheezes as Daniel pulls out almost the entire strange clot. With one final push, the man calls him useless, and the girl gasps in fear. Daniel says he'll have to do everything himself. The girl is frightened by the creepy behavior and says that if nothing else is needed from her, she will go. Daniel reproaches her for her lack of professionalism, since the girl's time has not yet run out. And then she reaches for the man's head again, intending to do something else. The mark that flashed under the index finger indicates that the purification of the dead person by 7 demons was carried out. Shine's body begins to move again, but at the same time it undergoes colossal changes. Rapidly losing his human features, the man makes a sound similar to a nasty giggle, and then he completes his transformation, letting out a long, relieved sigh. The man, who had previously arched back until his bones crunched, suddenly leans forward. He throws a sharp glance at the girl, causing her to scream in fear. But this is the most she is capable of now, because the monster's movements are lightning fast. Seeing sharp claws literally before her eyes, the girl asks the monster to stop. In vain, because the monster in front of her has neither will nor reason. The creature hesitates until the first drop falls from the finger. All this time it carefully examines the lifeless body, sniffing the smell of metal. And then a hoarse voice comes from inside the monster, announcing its intention to eat. And Daniel, saying that since he felt better, tells Zombie Shine to go with him after the girl. Meanwhile, the two continue their activities. While they are in such positions, their blood becomes enriched, filling the body with all the necessary nutrients. They cleanse each of the organs, which are filled with energy, and begin to function better. But this is a difficult test for the body, so the woman cannot withstand it. And yet she comes to her senses quite quickly, getting up almost immediately. Now asks the woman how she feels. And she says she feels lighter and more comfortable in her body than ever before. Pleased with the result, Net says that this is how it should be and suggests continuing the training. The woman doesn't understand what exactly they're talking about, asking if what they've already done isn't enough. No says that they must open the minor celestial circulation, and his interlocutor is amazed by this. The man agrees that it usually takes a long time, but he knows how to speed up the process. Seeing a familiar token, the woman has doubts and asks inquiringly if this is an artifact of evil. No begins to talk about the essence of comprehending the path and the main method of obtaining the essence. Together with breath control and initial meditation, it includes double cultivation. It, in turn, includes emptiness and joy, as well as a way of collecting and toning. It is a common practice in demonic cults to quickly increase the level of cultivation. After listening to the celestial being, the woman asks him a clarifying question about the contents of the token. No, he discusses the creation of a tool for collecting and toning and the resulting effect. And then he says that they have no time to waste, because only by breaking through will they gain strength. After these words, the woman becomes determined and asks what she should do. Taking this for granted, the celestial immediately takes the token into his mouth. He invites the woman to bite the ghost plate and let him guide her. While she does this, No explains the double cultivation method in more detail. He goes through in detail the instructions that are necessary for its implementation, and at some point the woman admits that she feels very good down there. She feels so good that she can't hold back, letting out air. And even though she couldn't control it, she still felt very ashamed. No, he asks the woman not to be afraid of this, because it is a sign that the energy is breaking through 3 barriers. The double cultivation method combines the strength of 2 people and allows one to quickly overcome barriers. The Celestial says that he will help her overcome the barrier first. Trying to catch her breath, the woman says she feels a warm wave from her head to her feet, and she assumes that they succeeded, although this effect seems simple and quick to her. No, he says that this method only seems simple, but in reality it is difficult to achieve. Because in the process, both participants must completely trust each other, and this is very difficult. Previously, such people were too rare, which often led to forced collection and death. The woman asks Ned about his trust in her, since he has only just descended into the mortal world. The man says that all the memories of her are stored in his mind, and in his eyes, she is a real treasure. These words leave the woman taken aback. She doesn't even fully understand what she was just confessed to. And No says that now she must help him break through the barrier. Meanwhile, somewhere nearby, a child is making something out of sand. This child is Joy. The little girl is so absorbed in her work that she doesn't hear the footsteps approaching her. And even more so, she has no idea what danger she is in now. Her mother and Net at this time were still continuing to learn the technique of collection and toning. But then the celestial being's developed senses detect some strange, abnormal surge. And the man, taking the token out of his mouth, says that there is an enemy here. The woman screams in bewilderment. Her maternal instinct is well developed, so the first thing a mother worries about is her daughter. No, he grabs the woman more comfortably and asks her to hold on tightly and not move. He asks her to concentrate on helping him break through the barrier. The rest is up to him. The woman, although worried, does not object, and the celestial being begins to move. Meanwhile, Zombie Shine is so close to the girl that she notices him. Turning around to get a better look at the scary stranger, she screams and calls out for her parents. Oddly enough, it works. The creepy monster can't get it. Joy turns to her father, saying that there is a monster there and she is scared. No asks the girl not to be afraid and to stand behind him. He promises to protect her, and she agrees. The zombie, rising as if nothing had happened, lets out an intermittent growl. No, he mentally analyzes the creature standing in front of him and comes to the conclusion that it is an improved corpse. The dead man takes off, just as the man has time to think that his creator has made his move. Then the celestial being realizes the full potential by combining attack and defense. This way he manages to deal a powerful blow to the creature. But the dead man not only remains on his feet, but also looks as if nothing happened. No one thinks that the enhanced dead are a problem because they are not afraid of death and pain. These creatures fight with a suicidal determination to defeat their opponent. While the celestial is pondering, the dead man takes advantage of the moment. Holding his victim firmly with one hand, he already raises the other for the fatal blow. As the clawed paw approaches the celestial at impressive speed, he continues his analysis. He is delighted by the fortunate coincidence of circumstances because he feels strength in one of his acupuncture points. But the woman does not share his joy and appeals to her husband's prudence. However, what was the cause of the celestial being's joy is happening. Passing through the acupuncture point on the back of his head, pure energy strikes the monster. Thus his small heavenly circle, the kingdom of purification of life energy, opens. The celestial speaks of the orthodox methods of the mystical gates. And, pouring even more energy into Shine's body, he adds that true yang conquers evil. The dead man makes a short wheeze as his head falls back. When his lifeless body falls, No has no time to remove his hand. The celestial asks the woman if she is okay, and she says that everything is fine. Continuing her game as if nothing had happened, Joy asks her parents if they defeated the monster. The man responds with agreement. The woman echoes him, saying that they have won him over. Then she takes a closer look at the corpse and notices that it looks like Shine. But the woman doesn't understand what's wrong with him and asks about it. No explains to her that Shine was turned into an enhanced corpse. The woman asks if he has really become something like those zombies they show on TV. But No says that you can't deal with a zombie so easily, and that it's a dead doll from which the soul was pulled. As soon as the man finishes his explanation, claps are heard from somewhere behind him. Turning around, he observes the following picture. Daniel notes that the celestial managed to destroy his puppet. He believes that Net is from a serious sect. The celestial being addresses the mother and daughter, ordering them to immediately enter the house. And before doing this, the woman asks the man to be careful. As she runs away, Daniel manages to see something that surprises him. He says that if you think about it, No is an ordinary low-level cultivator. The celestial moves as he speaks of having a hidden and unique talent. Not expecting such a turn of events, Daniel is momentarily at a loss. And that's enough for No to prepare for a full-power ejection, a mountain-destroying blow. However, his opponent only snorts at this attack, and the celestial being barely has time to see what is flashing right in front of his face. The man miraculously manages to jump back just as the blade cuts through the air. But it turns out that his opponent is no slouch, because he disappears from where he just was. And the next moment, he finds himself just a couple of meters above Net. But the celestial is good himself. He groups and focuses on the enemy's movements. And this allows him not only to dodge in time the second time. No, he doesn't want to remain in debt, and fixes the position of the sword with his grip. In his free hand, the man concentrates energy for the upcoming strike. And the very next moment, his idea is crowned with success. No asks Daniel what other tricks he has, since he realized where the ghost warrior was from. The man laughs, amazed that the celestial being put all his efforts into defeating his pawns. He provocatively asks if No really thinks he can fight him, and the man asks his interlocutor for permission to show him the abyss that stretches between them. Daniel sets conditions, starting with what he has already done. No, but he agrees to be merciful. He says that he might even let him become his new mutt, but only after a series of actions. And first of all, Nitu will need to give his woman and daughter to Daniel without offering any resistance. A provocative smirk appears on the man's lips, even in the face of danger. And, for some reason, the ghostly warriors freeze, unable to reach him. This sight and the rough grip on his own neck leave Daniel speechless and unable to speak. A sudden and terrible guess comes to his mind, and the man tests it. The guess turns out to be true. The one holding it is Zombie Shine. Daniel says he thinks this is impossible because Net develops pure yang energy. But at the same time, the man is tormented by the question of why this corpse is so strong. No, he says that this is the true method of purifying the corpse. When the corpse merges with the child, the yin indicators increase. What the celestial speaks of is confirmed by this ghostly token. One only has to look at it. And Daniel asks his opponent if he really thought he could hold him back. The man screams, saying that No just missed out on a chance to at least live as a dog. Saying that even a piece of him is precious, Daniel bites his finger until it bleeds. Drawing some symbol on his forehead, he asks Nita to look at it. The symbol that flares up on the skin is called Incinerate. Its second name is the Golden Silkworm's Shield of Life Energy. As the dead man falls backwards, pushed away by Daniel's technique, the man laughs. No, he is actively thinking about what he should do to avoid getting into trouble. His opponent, meanwhile, says with obvious pleasure that he is finished. And the Celestial, without waiting for the enemy, uses the full potential of the Grandmaster of the martial path. Throwing his fist in front of himself, the man mentally repeats each action to himself. He thinks that first he needs to concentrate all his strength, then seal the acupuncture points. And only after this, in the final move, cut the meridians. Taken aback by such pressure and technique, Daniel can only wheeze in amazement. And then, having lost almost all his strength, he falls to the ground, somehow managing to create support for himself. Starting off hesitantly, Daniel ends it all with a scream, saying that No is asking to die. The man becomes truly enraged, saying that he will kill him and tear him to pieces. Baring his chest, Daniel grabs the pendant hanging from it and begins to speak. He appeals to the spirits of the 9 underworlds, asking them to hear his call. And then he switches to an unknown language, saying something very heartfelt. No, it does not interrupt his opponent's attempts to reach otherworldly beings, and he already speaks words about a strong spirit. The celestial being gets tired of these pathetic attempts and does not hold back. No, one wonders if the poor remnants of the end of Dharma era really become dumber the longer they live. The celestial notes that Daniel casts summoning spells during combat. At this moment, he notices that Zombie Shine has already come to his senses, and then the man says it's time to get to work. Sometime later, the celestial being is already standing in front of the door of the house of his physical form. Not hearing any voices or other sounds on the other side, he asks the woman and child not to be afraid, because it is he. Coming inside, No says that it's all over. And the woman, hearing these words, feels relieved. However, her gaze catches on the one behind Net, and she gasps in fear. The woman switches to a whisper, addressing her husband, and begins to express a guess. Joy clings to her mother tighter, saying that the monster is back and she is scared. But, despite her fears, the monster remains motionless, and his face all this time resembles a stone mask. No, leaning towards the girl, he asks her not to worry, and says that he is obedient and will do whatever she wants. The little girl still has doubts, but now asks more confidently if this is true. Deciding to check everything out for herself, the girl asks the zombie if he can show her the heart. When he releases his grip and Daniel's body falls, the little girl gets a little scared. But the very next moment, Zombie Shine, growling somewhat embarrassedly, fulfills her request. Joy gets excited, saying it's fun, and asks the dead man to do a handstand. When he does this too, the girl again lets out a cry of admiration. And she starts asking to do the same thing again and again, until she is stopped. Turning to Net, the woman asks him why he brought this man here. The celestial being begins to explain to her the reason for his actions in all details. The man suggests that Daniel is the heir to the path of cultivation, and can help them advance. Moreover, his entire body is a real treasure trove, and Net offers to examine it. In order to protect his women, men resort to forced measures. After this, Daniel gradually begins to come to his senses and groans softly. And then the man breaks down, asking Net how he dared tie him up and if he knows who he is. Calling the celestial being a worthless cultivator, Daniel continues to make threats. He starts to ask how Net dared to touch his powerful family, but falls silent, because the celestial being orders him to shut up. As if it wasn't enough for him to endure such humiliation, the improvised gag also smelled terrible. Hearing a child's voice from the side, Daniel involuntarily glances in his direction and understands everything. Meanwhile, No offers his captive to see what useful things he has. First of all, a man remembers what he has already seen. Looking closely at the pendant, his wife asks why this man wears the seal. No explains that it is used to make contracts with the evil spirits of the 9 underworlds. But this seal is made rather crudely, which means it is unlikely to be able to summon anything powerful. Daniel considers this nonsense, and Netta himself an ignorant fool who dared to fight him. He says that this seal is a precious heirloom that has been passed down from generation to generation. The man starts blabbering again about his family's horrific legacy, but he can't finish. In an ominous yet disbelieving tone, he notes that No dared to hit him. Then the celestial being hits the man again, and this is called the chatty slap of silence. No, it seems they have obtained 1 low-level Ghost King worship seal, and also 1 low-grade golden silkworm from the line of King Guilty of the Nindark tribe. However, No doesn't stop there, removing the belt from his hostage. The woman screams and turns to her husband with a question. She asks the celestial about the reason why he took off Daniel's pants. No, he looks thoughtfully at the object because it is a spiritual artifact that captivates the mind. Following this, the man, checking the inside pocket of Daniel's jacket, finds the Yin Mountain Warrior talismans. But that's not all, as there is also a protective artifact, a part of the Golden Talisman underwear. The woman asks what it is, and the man says he has never seen anything like it. No, he says he doesn't feel any magical energy coming from the item, but the work is delicate. Daniel says this black VIP card is unlimited, but they won't get it even in 1,000 lives. However, the man is ready to give it up if he is released. No one notices that this is simply the currency of mortals, and soon many people will rush to give it to them. Daniel is unhappy about this, but all he does is chuckle, expressing his irritation. Looking at all these artifacts, the woman cannot hold back an exclamation of admiration. She notes that this man is covered from head to toe with real treasures. No, he says that their quality is not very good, but in times like these it is better to have at least this than nothing. Because of this, she, like the celestial being, does not notice the changes that have affected their captive. His cunning look was a harbinger of a cunning plan just for such an occasion. And No pulls the woman up, urging her to stop looking at the artifacts and get down to business. Hearing the words about great value, she asks again and asks where it is. We are talking about the essence of a person at the peak of cultivating vital energy, because it is an elixir for improvement. No, it suggests that Daniel drained the life force of many people for a reason. Meanwhile, the man himself begins to stutter and asks what the celestial being wants to do with him. No, speaking of what Daniel took from others, he says that now they will take from him. And he starts threatening again, saying that his family will crush him for such blatant impudence. But this does not frighten the celestial being, and, on the contrary, even encourages him to do so. The woman asks Netta not to say that she will have to press against this man's mouth to absorb. The celestial says that he simply could not allow Daniel to enjoy something so pleasant, and he talks about another method that is used to collect the essence. Hearing all these explanations, the woman becomes inspired and asks her husband to take away Daniel's essence. She admits that she used to think it was a bit cruel, but now she doesn't feel any guilt. No, he gently tells her that their cultivation levels are not yet high enough, which does not give them much choice. And, saying that they will have to rely on paired cultivation, the man suggests they begin. The woman stutters when she asks if they should adopt those strange positions. And the celestial being, approaching her, says that not now. No, he starts by saying that the principle of the stellar absorption technique is quite simple. He talks about how it originally came into being, born out of a clash between people. After listening carefully to Netta, the woman suggests that cupping therapy works on a similar principle. The celestial says that, judging by his body's knowledge of modernity, it is so. And before touching the woman with his lips, he invites her to begin. He brings to life the star absorption technique, called double fish kill. At this time, the male hand unmistakably finds its victim and begins the process. At the same moment, the energy leaving the body begins its journey through the veins, filling and saturating them. Since they are now merged, the woman also feels someone else's energy with her body. It passes through her, causing strange, previously unexperienced sensations. No, he asks her to wait and follow his recommendations, because too much energy can be harmful. Meanwhile, at the Daniel family's ancestral estate, a heavy, anxious stomping sound echoes throughout the house. Bursting into the room, the butler addresses his master, saying that something terrible has happened. Without waiting for an answer, the man continues, saying that the young master is in danger. His master asks how dare he behave so rudely, since he has highly respected guests. The guest asks not to worry about this, saying that everything is fine, because the butler Var is always reliable. And, remembering the man's words, he asks if something bad has happened to the young master. The butler begins to speak, but his voice sounds uncertain. He stutters and stops. The head of Daniel's family, saying that the master asked, orders Varu to answer clearly. The butler says the insect child that was used for surveillance has returned. Var is cautious, saying that he immediately asked the servants about the young master's whereabouts. The head of the family's guest's expression does not change, and so the butler continues. He talks about where exactly Daniel was heading, and about a man named Morn Ginger. And the man ends his story with the words that it is unknown whether the young gentleman is alive or not. And then the head of the family can't stand it anymore and asks an angry question. He orders the insect child to be released so that it can take him to where his son is. The guest stops the host of the house, starting to talk about Daniel and ending with the favor he did him. He allegedly worried about how to repay this kindness, so he asks to take care of this matter. Daniel's father says he will not refuse, leaving his son in the care of his guest. The same one, saying that time is pressing, asks the butler to show him the way. Meanwhile, Daniel swears under his breath, cursing the man and his wife. And then he screams, asking how they dared to destroy his foundations and steal his essence. At this moment, the woman, stretching sweetly, says that she feels very good. Listening to her feelings, she adds that she can hear her daughter outside. No, it says that as one progresses in the field of self-improvement, the sensitivity of the soul increases. Daniel is amazed by this, and starting to ask questions, decides to see for himself. The very next moment he realizes that these guys are indeed at the peak of purification. No, he suggests that he should see what kind of prey he will become bait for. Daniel even shudders when he hears these words, because he certainly didn't expect this. Pausing between words, he asks the celestial being how he understood this. No one is amazed by the impudence of this man, and says what he would have done in his place. Daniel laughs, calling his interlocutor a fool and saying why this will never happen. The celestial being doesn't intend to listen to all this, so he tells him to shut up. Addressing the woman, he suggests that she, first of all, prepare herself. The woman doesn't understand him, so she asks him what they should prepare for. and No begins to tell that, most likely, their next enemy will be the Foundation realm or higher. And then the woman has a reasonable question: what should they do then? No, it says that cultivation level affects strength, but in battle, other factors also play a role. For example, if a child and an adult have the same weapon, the child still has a chance of winning. If the child has a firearm, then the chances of winning become even more equal. Demonstrating that she understood everything, the woman retells Netta's words in her own way. No, he agrees with her and thinks that these artifacts are useless against their enemies. And this only means that he needs to improve these magical objects. While everyone is busy with their own affairs, time inexorably approaches evening. At some point, a man lands near Morn's house. Observing the signal, the butler confirms that the place they need is here, and his companion asks for permission to reconnoiter the situation. And, without waiting for an answer, he performs a certain technique. It is called divine sight, or clairvoyance. The man's gaze immediately turns into the distance, to where, in his opinion, their target is. Unerringly finding a man and a woman, he speaks of them and of how they are both at the peak of purification. He also talks about a frightening corpse puppet, which is also a cultivator. However, the butler is interested in something else, and he asks the monk if everything is well with his young master. He says that Daniel is still alive, but not without reservations. The man's aura is weak, making it seem as if his essence was taken away by force through evil magic. Meanwhile, Net notices the uninvited guest and even names the technique he is using. Although the monk is surprised by this, he remains silent. At this moment, the butler respectfully asks him to save his young master. There is no need to ask for this again. The monk immediately goes to the enemy camp. His speed turns out to be truly impressive, but No doesn't show it. Instead, he asks his opponent who he is, and the monk mentally notes that Net's spiritual intuition is so great that he cannot comprehend it. The monk says that he bears a name unknown in the Dharma, and he has come to bring Daniel back. He begs Netta to return to the righteous path before it is too late. The Celestial considers these words to be another trick of religious sectarians, and he decides to tell how everything really happened, how Daniel wanted to kidnap his daughter and kill his wife. Calling the monk a master, the man asks how he will judge them in such a situation. The butler, who had arrived just in time, intervened in the conversation, asking Net how he dared to slander their master. The monk says beautifully that he will not believe him, because Daniel has always had excellent manners. He demands that he be released immediately, that he abandon his path of perfection, and that the artifacts be handed over. The Celestial responds accordingly, stubbornly standing his ground and saying that he does not understand the monk. He says that Daniel is his hostage, and if the monk moves, he will take his life, and they will die together. The butler calls Net a scumbag, saying that if he harms his master, he will pay with his life. The monk agrees with this arrangement, saying that in this case he will act accordingly. He addresses the cultivating woman, saying that if she harms Daniel, he will destroy everyone. Net's eyes widen for just a moment, not from fear, but from surprise. He didn't expect such impulsiveness from the monk, and that's why he was surprised. And yet the Celestial allows himself to smile, because his plan worked. After all, despite the fact that the monk grabbed him, he would not dare to use all his strength to kill him. The monk, meanwhile, asks him not to force him, explaining that the gap between them is obvious. He doesn't have time to finish the last sentence. His voice breaks off, dissolving into the air. But even after reaching a safe distance, the monk is in no hurry to continue his monologue. The butler is amazed that No can summon the ghost warriors. After all, he is sure that this is something more advanced, since the ghost general himself is in front of them. The monk admits that Net has some abilities, but says that they won't work against him. He is attacked as soon as the man manages to say that the ghost general is not his opponent. He demonstrates this the very next moment, building a force field around himself. But the warriors of Netta are not going to give up so easily, and are once again breaking away from their place. The ghost general intends to break through this barrier, but his opponent is truly serious. He says only one word, but it has an effect. At the same time, the monk says that he will send them all to the afterlife. The butler laughs, saying that the phantom general is nothing compared to a master like him. During all this action, the man does not notice how something is rapidly approaching the monk. But the monk himself turns out to be more attentive, quickly noticing the approaching artifact. This way, he manages to react in time and place a block in front of the object. But this does not come so easily to him. The monk has to make an effort, even to stay in place. And the next moment, it gets even hotter, but everything happens too quickly. At the moment when the monk feels a grip on his neck, an idea comes to his mind. Daniel's butler is also completely perplexed, not understanding how this is possible. And No admits that the ghost general was just a decoy while he himself summoned another. The monk cannot come to terms with what he sees, so he remains stunned into silence for a while. But he still forces himself to ask the question, is this really the Ghost King? The butler intuitively asks Net how he managed to summon such a powerful being, and he says that in order to control such creatures, you need to use special bait. Listening to the Celestial's words, the Ghost King chuckled vaguely. But the butler still doesn't understand how everything turned out this way, because Master Light is much stronger than Net. At this moment, the monk mentally analyzes the behavior of the celestial being, realizing that he has calculated everything. He finds the scheme clever and the plans of such a young man incomprehensible and frightening. But the man is unable to complete his chain of reasoning due to external intrusion, and the one who did this turns out to be the Ghost King himself. The creature removes an object from the man's body, grinning smugly. Looking at the elixir of foundation, the Ghost King says that he considers it a wonderful treasure, and without hesitation he finds a use for the miraculous remedy. But he fails to do this. No stops the creature, saying that he needs this elixir. The Ghost King does stop, but he is surprised. The monk's body finds itself without support the very next moment, as the creature moves abruptly. Frozen dangerously close to the celestial, the Ghost King speaks, his tone warning. He says that what No offered him was payment for only one action, and that he cannot be ordered. But the man does not back down, explaining what he gave him. He says that he can offer him even more. However, the Ghost King has his own vision of this. He says how he intends to act himself. He asks what could be more priceless than making a breakthrough in a year. The celestial pushes the clawed fingers away from himself as easily as if the creature had not resisted. And then he asks what he thinks about the method that will help him become a Ghost Lord. The Ghost King doesn't believe it, considering it impossible, since this method was lost thousands of years ago. No says that as soon as he deals with his opponents, he will contact him and tell him everything. The decision as to whether this method is worthwhile or not is left to the Ghost King by the celestial being. This decision becomes obvious in the next moment. And then, when the celestial intercepts the elixir, the Ghost King speaks again. He says that if it turns out that Net lied to him, the man will not get off easy. The celestial being rejoices inwardly as he reflects on the current generation of cultivators. He thinks that when the Ghost King comes out of seclusion, he will become his ghost servant. Turning to the butler, the man says that he is ready to exchange Daniel for something equally valuable. Var suggests naming the exact price so that he can convey it accurately. The celestial offers to prepare as much as the offspring of this family is worth, in their opinion. The butler, noting that Net knows how to bargain, says that he will convey these words to his master. The celestial being follows the men's backs until they disappear from sight. And only then, with a calm soul, he turns around and returns to the house. His wife and child immediately run up to him, joyfully calling out to the head of their family. The girl asks what kind of treasure it is, admiringly saying that it is beautiful and funny. The man says that this is the elixir of foundation, refined by a cultivator of the foundation realm. Daniel can't believe his ears, asking how Net managed to defeat Master Light. He begins to list all the monk's titles and merits, but the celestial being shuts him up halfway. This time he uses the flying slap from the life energy refining cultivator. The woman clarifies whether Net intends to use this for their paired improvement. The celestial, in turn, notices that she is becoming more and more skilled. The woman refuses this, but admits that she does feel pleasant from it. But then he cries out sharply, driving away the unwanted thoughts. No, he says that he praises her quite sincerely, and the woman says that she really still needs his help. Joy asks her mother why her face is as red as a tomato, and the woman, calling her daughter clever, says that it is already very late and sends her to bed. She adds that mom and dad still have a lot of work to do to become better. Having carefully weighed her mother's words, the girl asks if it is convenient for her to become better. The woman tries to answer her, but due to embarrassment, something comes out unintelligible. But she still stands, saying that they need to become stronger in order to protect their daughter. This answer suits the child, and she condescendingly allows her parents to study in comfort. Turning away, Joy says she's already asleep and promises she won't peek. Her mother only breathes a sigh of relief when she is convinced that this is indeed the case. A few minutes later, the woman speaks again, addressing her husband by name. She says that this posture for Foundation Realm dual cultivation is too strange. While the woman speaks, the man listens to her attentively, and only after listening to her to the end does he answer. He says that this method activates a divine ability called Shaman's Gate. They play an important role before laying the foundation. The woman asks if they don't have the elixir of the foundation, and can't they just absorb it like before. The celestial begins to tell her about what is necessary on the path from cleansing energy to creating a foundation. To do this, it is necessary to concentrate the vital energy flowing through the meridians into the essence of the base. If the physical body is not strong enough, it will look like a ball. Similar to an explosion, excessive pressure will cause all meridians to rupture. Daniel has reached the peak of his life energy purification and now wants to take his daughter away from her parents. With her help, he wants to reach the Foundation Realm, but they can reveal a useful divine ability. The woman, grasping the essence, also clarifies, using the analogy with the ball, whether she understood her husband correctly. And he says that during this improvement, they must get rid of unnecessary thoughts. When their emotions and sensations reach their peak, the resulting elixir activates hidden effects in their bodies. The woman can't believe how amazing their bodies are and asks about it. The man draws a parallel with jade, which will remain a stone if no one recognizes it. Having finished his comparison, he activates the required point on his wife's body and informs her of the beginning. And at that very moment, an uncontrollable moan of pleasure escapes from the woman. She tries to hold back, tensing her whole body, but nothing works. This leads to involuntary movements and contraction of tense muscles. At some point, an identical feeling overtakes Nita, which causes the celestial being to be deeply astonished. This amazes the man to such an extent that he mentally wonders what this strange feeling is. He can't believe that it actually shakes his celestial heart. The man asks himself mentally why he feels so incredibly good. But he guesses, since this is the first time he uses this method of laying the foundation, he has never had anything like this. His wife says she can't take it anymore because it's even better than before, and no answers. Having said that the time has come, he adds that the precious elixir is ripe. The celestial being asks the woman to collect it as quickly as possible, and this happens through the method of the first level of revealing the divine ability, the fruit of yin-yang. After absorption, the body will not deteriorate, the physical form will remain unchanged forever. This is the beginning. While busy with their work, the young people completely forgot about their observer, who was desperately thinking. He wonders what the hell this is, having never heard of such a method before. And the celestial being at that moment, almost physically feeling his thoughts, smiles to himself with satisfaction. At this time, Light cannot come to terms with the fact that, despite his level, his former opponent is cunning. Daniel's father asks the monk if he knows from which lineage this man inherited the cultivation technique. But then the door swings open and a woman appears in the room asking indigo denial about her son. Daniel's mother asks what cursed creature, on the brink of death, dared to kidnap her son. The man says that Master Light was seriously injured while trying to save their son, so the scenes here are unnecessary. Knowing his wife's character firsthand, he still decides to talk to her outside so as not to disturb the patient. And then a vase breaks outside, and along with it, Indigo is called a useless old man. His wife reproaches the man for not being able to cope even with the unknown cultivator. The head of the family does not give in to unreasonable pressure and asks her to stop shouting. Moreover, he says that all this happened because she spoiled him. Indigo says that Daniel is reckless and devoid of any cunning because he was deceived by some greedy fool. The woman begins to talk about the legacy that their son carries with him. She believes that the rest is unimportant. She is furious that some bug that crawled out of a trash can dares to go against him. Without waiting for an answer, the enraged mother leaves, saying that she will save her son herself. Indigo asks her not to act impulsively because that guy is incredibly insightful. He wants to help. But the woman refuses, saying that she will not wait another minute and will sort everything out herself. Indigo asks inquiringly if she is talking about the dowry with which she entered his family. But still, without receiving an answer, he agrees with this intention. The man says that the person who insulted his wife will not even receive the mercy of a quick death. The woman continues to ooze bile, belittling her husband and exalting their son. The turning point in their conversation is the words that Indigo is useless trash. The man tries to say something, to somehow object, but it's too late. His wife has left the room. And a little later, she is already standing in front of the treasured door, filled with firm determination. Entering inside, the woman finds herself in pitch darkness, but this does not stop her. After taking a few steps, she finds herself in front of the artifact she had in mind. Taking a bell from her clothes, the woman rings it the required number of times. And then she turns to an invisible interlocutor, calling on him to come with her. Laughter comes from a structure tied with thread, which suspiciously resembles a coffin. The next moment, its lid flies off with a sharp, loud sound, drenching Daniel's mother in a wave of air. But the impulse does not touch the woman. She stands firmly and straight, without even blinking. And from the giant coffin comes a mournful, otherworldly groan. And the next moment, in its impenetrable darkness, two lighter spots with black centers appear. Meanwhile, Morn's wife asks the celestial being if they succeeded. Instead of answering with words, the man decides to demonstrate everything in practice. And indeed, the rather deep cut that was just inflicted quickly heals. The woman finds this incredible, but the man says it's just a basic effect of the ability. When asked to take off her clothes, she asks if they shouldn't be doing something serious. And the celestial being says that for everything to work out, she must undress as quickly as possible. For this, the woman asks that the involuntary witness's ears and eyes be carefully covered. And Daniel, calling her a bitch, pulls her up and says that he has had all sorts of women. He adds that with such insignificant charms, she is not worth even one glance of his. This hits the woman's pride, and she asks to shut this man up. The dead assistant immediately appears nearby. No need to repeat it. The woman turns to him too, telling him to turn away and saying that only Morn can watch. And only when the creature does this does she begin to take off her clothes. The celestial being watches the woman's every move closely, but says nothing. And this continues until the moment when she is completely naked. Sometime later, Net's calm voice is heard from their house. He asks the little girl to watch carefully what he shows. The girl is impressed and excitedly asks her father if it is magic. He replies that this is a basic fire control spell that can be used in the realm of purification. This allows for many types of energy manifestations to be created, such as creating a water condensation spell. By lowering the temperature of your palm, you can condense the surrounding water vapor from the air into liquid. Hearing that it can even be turned into ice, the girl screams excitedly again. Amazed that her father just created an ice cream cone with his hand, Joy asks permission to eat it. The man does not mince words, which surprises his daughter. The girl is amazed at how cold and delicious it is. Joy says she wants to be able to do this too, so she can eat a lot of ice cream, and No agrees to teach her. The man says that very soon he will make perfection vitamins for the baby. When she says that, then she will be able to make a lot of delicious things. The Celestial laughs. However, his fun is not destined to last long, and the first to notice the strange anomaly is the girl's mother. She turns to her husband, screaming and urging him to quickly look in the direction of their hostage, and he, extremely pleased, says that his mother has arrived. There is no answer to this, but active work is already underway in his head. Daniel speaks up again, delightedly saying that they are all finished. The woman screams, asking not to let the captive escape. Shine answers her call again, but Daniel only laughs. After all, he already knew in advance how this attempt would end. And the last parts of the magical flow hide, not allowing anyone to even try to catch them. This technique is called the Five Ghosts Transformation Technique. And from behind the door, the angry voice of Daniel's mother is heard, addressing those inside. She says that even if she cuts them into 1,000 pieces, it will not satisfy her anger. Daniel stops her, asking them not to kill, since Net knows various lost effective techniques. He offers to capture them, extract their souls, cleanse their spirits, and turn them into ghostly slaves for eternity. When he says that he wants to torment them forever, Net only smirks. Well, Daniel's mother, calling the Celestial being a stupid, rootless fool, is being clever again. She says she has hundreds of options to arrange for them to suffer a fate that will be worse than death. And with the ringing of her bell, he appears. He doesn't know who is in front of him, so he is surprised by the 100-year-old corpse king. The woman's gaze at this moment is filled with even greater superiority than before. And she, ringing the bell again, orders the king to break their limbs, tear off their skin, and rip out their tendons. This causes the undead's condition to change. The 100-year-old corpse king takes off, and to the naked eye it looks like he's vanishing. What can I say? Even the keen eye of a celestial being cannot immediately grasp the trajectory of its movement. But he can clearly feel when strong nails press into his chest. However, No is not going to give in to some corpse, immediately responding to his attack. But this is not so much an attack as an attempt to give yourself a boost in order to increase the distance from your opponent. No, trying not to let the corpse king out of sight, he thinks that he is very fast. And he again finds himself very close and is already gathering strength for a strike. The Celestial barely manages to avoid it, but even so, the dead man's nails pass very close to him. Despite everything, the corpse king remains impassive, as befits his brother. Finally stopping, Net feels an unusual sensation in his neck, and he mentally rejoices that he had developed in himself the divine ability of invulnerability in advance. Daniel's mother chuckles in disappointment, saying that she thought Net was truly powerful. And then she, turning to her son, asks him how he could have fallen into the hands of such a worthless person. Daniel asks his mother not to be so careless, saying that No is slippery like a bug. He tells that the Celestial has developed an ability that is unknown to him and asks to watch. He chooses the right moment because the wound on Net's neck is just healing. The woman agrees that this is not just some kind of spell, but a divine ability. Daniel egged her on, while No was distracted by the Corpse King, to capture his wife and daughter to manipulate. His mother likes the idea and says she thinks it's a good one. As soon as she says this phrase, the woman takes off, intending to implement her plan. The mother and daughter she is heading towards freeze, not knowing what to do. But they don't need it, since they have a puppet protector. But the woman from the Daniel family is not so simple. She quickly picks up on movement from the outside. This turns out to be a mistake for the zombie, which Daniel's mother herself soon informs him about. With a dismissive snort, she says it's a mediocre trick to bring a corpse back to life. As she continues moving towards her goal, the mother, covering her daughter, asks her not to come closer. The woman calls people like her useless ants and begins to talk about her intention. She stops short of saying that she is doing all this only for the sake of her son. Because the next moment, something happens that the woman did not expect. Daniel lets out a frightened, worried cry, calling out to his mother. The Celestial is also in the lead at this point, securely holding his opponent's hands. Noticing his wife's success out of the corner of his eye, he chuckled approvingly. But not everything is as clear-cut as it might seem at first glance. Not only is Daniel's mother found to be alive, she is also unharmed. But the woman is furious, and in an angry tone she asks her rival how she dared. She is not going to give up so easily, saying the words that activate the flash of light. The woman, shielding herself from the bright light, asks a puzzled question. And Joy's mother, taking advantage of this pause, begins to send everything she knows at her rival. It seems as if it is impossible to get out of this abundance of techniques intact, but the woman does not consider this sufficient. and she repeats again everything that she has already done so that her efforts are not in vain. The woman's mood is so serious that she carries out these manipulations for the third time, surprising her baby. That her blows have reached their target becomes clear from the characteristic ringing sound. Following it, another sound is heard, which announces victory very eloquently. Daniel is amazed that his mother's rival didn't even replenish her energy between attacks. Meanwhile, the bell suddenly jumps up and starts moving. The Celestial's hand intercepts it at just the right moment, causing his opponent to freeze. And yet the man moves away to a safer distance and sighs with relief. When he appears in front of Daniel, he lets out a ragged cry. This turns out to be too unexpected for him, which becomes the reason for the following actions. Trying to defend himself from Net with his hand, having learned from experience, Daniel asks not to hit him in the face. Well, the celestial being turns out to be merciful, although he does not completely relieve the man of punishment. So this family now has 2 hostages and 1 more puppet. Sometime later, mother and son come to their senses almost simultaneously, and the first thing they see and hear is this creature. Joy turns to her parents, saying that the evil old lady and the evil uncle have woken up. Realizing that his mother could cause trouble now, Daniel asks her to shut up, but she still snaps, and soon she herself understands what exactly her son meant, but it is too late. Looking at the results of her efforts, Joy's mother asks if this is really the flying palm. She can hardly believe that this technique was so easy to use. No, he says that it usually takes mortals more than a decade to do this, but for them, it is easier due to training. When the divine ability Shaman's Gate is activated, the hand strikes like a whip, causing ripples in the air. At higher levels, you can summon air blades with a simple wave of your hand. Daniel interrupts the conversation, asking why the woman has endured so many spells. However, he remains without an answer, and No, taking his wife by the hand, says words about luck. She feels a pleasant sensation from the very first touch. Well, the next moment everything becomes obvious to those around. Daniel is amazed to see a talisman made of flesh and blood, as he considers such a thing impossible. No, she asks him if he really didn't know that the liquid essence of the Kingdom of Foundation is the best material for this. This also comes as a surprise to Daniel. He didn't think that No would use something like this. When they don't answer him, the man pulls the couple up and asks what they're up to. No, telling his wife that it was time to collect the treasures, he orders the second hostage to be completely undressed. When she, having agreed, comes closer to Daniel's mother, the woman has already come to her senses. She jerks suddenly and stutters as she asks the woman Nada what she is going to do. She remains silent, and while she undresses her, Daniel's mother continues to swear incessantly. When it's all over, the woman asks how those bastards dared to take away her skill. When she asks how she fell into their trap, Neda's wife says that she knows the reason, and the woman begins to explain in her own words, beginning the story with the appearance of the monk. When she finishes, she asks her husband if she is right, and he answers. The man says that people are the same everywhere, but the wise never fall for the same trick twice. Daniel's mother, calling them vile rats, asks how they managed to deceive both her son and mother. Instead of words, the answer to this question is Net's eloquent gaze. And then both hostages start arguing, saying that their entire family will never forgive them for this. Joy says her teacher says good kids don't swear, and bad kids should be punished. And the girl, turning to her toy, orders that these people be punished quickly, because they are not allowed to speak. The first blow lands on the son's face, knocking a pitiful groan out of him. The second one, exactly the same, is intended for the mother, to teach her a lesson. And now Shine is delivering a whole series of slaps to both of them with impressive speed. Realizing they've had enough, Joy asks Daniel and his mother if they admit their guilt. And her mother, busy looking at the artifacts, notes that this time they didn't find that many. No, he says it doesn't matter that there are fewer of them, because the quality of the artifacts is much higher than last time. For example, just a portion of the mountain ghost coin can summon hundreds of ghost soldiers and generals. In wartime, just one such man could capture an entire city. If you blow into this dragon horn using spiritual energy, it can be heard even in the underworld. And by calling on the messengers of the underworld, one can summon immortal ghosts with official titles. As soon as the man finishes this sentence, there is a knock at the door. He who expects no one prepares for the worst in advance, just in case. But it turns out to be just a neighbor who assumes that Morn and his wife are being harassed by bandits. He means those who were here a few days ago, and the Celestial agrees. The old man begins to talk about how, after the last time, he and the other neighbors feel guilty. So they collected as much as they could and advised Netu and his family to flee to a safer place. The woman tells her neighbor that everything is fine and asks him to keep the money. No, he echoes his wife, but says that it's good that the neighbor came to see them, since there is something to discuss. He says that despite this situation, they met a person who helps them. Saying that they are safe and sound, the man suggests that they check it out for themselves. The neighbor agrees with him and says he is relieved that they are okay. No, he says that their benefactor has taken a liking to this land and wants to buy it from all the residents of this area. The neighbor is at a loss when he hears that they are being offered a new house in the city for this wreck. No, he asks to discuss these conditions with the others, pushing the point that such an opportunity is a rare chance. No says that if everyone agrees, he will ask them to start preparations immediately. The woman is at a loss for words, as her husband's words came as a surprise even to her. And the neighbor leaves, agreeing and saying that he will go talk to everyone right now and give an answer by tomorrow. When the young people are left alone, the woman asks her husband why he suddenly suggested moving out. He replies that the upcoming battle will not be a simple skirmish and may affect a large territory. Therefore, the Celestial wants to establish a spiritual altar here and activate the formation. The woman is just trying to digest all of this, so she is at a loss for words. No, he says that time is of the essence and suggests that she begin installing the foundation. Pausing between words, the woman asks what position she should take this time. For better concentration, they move to a private area. Patting his knees, Net orders the woman to lie down on him and lift her shirt. She does this carefully and slowly, either out of embarrassment or fear of doing something wrong. But having finally found a comfortable position, the woman lies down and lifts her t-shirt. Having done this, she checks with the celestial being to see if she did everything correctly. At first he doesn't answer, but he immediately starts to act. No says it won't be a paired cultivation process, and the woman asks why. And he receives the answer that for cultivators, the generated essence differs depending on their body type. The yin treasure perfectly matches the woman's physique, and then she will be able to help Netu. The man talks about what will happen if the liquid that sets the foundation is poured in by force. Then the woman's current physical state in the area of cleansing will not be able to resist this. No, it says the infusion must be carefully monitored to prevent possible injury. Adding that it will be incredibly painful, the man asks if the woman is ready to endure it. He receives in response that when she gave birth to Joy, she endured agony that lasted a whole day and night. By saying that she has endured this, the woman expresses confidence that nothing can compare to this. As memories of what happened after flash before her eyes, she gently pushes them away, and immediately asks the Celestial to begin the infusion. She is embarrassed by the ambiguity of her own words, asking why it sounded so inappropriate. No, he thinks that although women are fragile by nature, they become stronger after experiencing the joy of motherhood. Concluding his thought by saying that his wife is a devoted mother and an exceptional woman, he asks her not to worry. Adding that he will do everything quickly, the man begins the process and the woman gasps. When she looks at the strange-looking essence from such a distance, it scares her a little. And then the first drop touches the woman's skin, and a surprised sigh escapes her lips. At first, everything is even bearable, and one involuntarily relaxes. But this is only the first time, because immediately after this, the woman's body is pierced by the first flash of pain. She feels a foreign substance spreading through her veins at the same time. The woman cannot help but groan in pain as the foundation is forcibly installed. And these guys look at each other questioningly, hearing her oohs and ahs. Daniel's mother asks her son what the hell they are doing there, but he says he doesn't know. However, the man suggests that the couple has mastered some kind of powerful technique. Saying that they are getting stronger every day, he asks his mother what they should do about it. The woman asks in response what they can do, and says that Daniel's father will definitely make the next move. His level of cultivation is not the highest, but his connections and ability to build relationships have made a name for him. The woman confesses that this old man somehow managed to force her to give birth to Daniel with his cunning. However, he destroyed her foundation of cultivation completely. Daniel tells his mother not to worry about it, saying that he has heard about the foundation restoration method. The man says he will personally get it for his mother so she can crush these insignificant bugs. Indigo confesses to Light that he is ashamed that the monk was seriously injured because of his son. And instead of suggesting how best to thank him, he says that his God is merciful. The monk says that his nephew has experienced great misfortune, but he does not regret anything. Indigo asks him to gain strength and promises to do everything possible to help him recover. A man bursting into the room addresses his owner and says that something bad has happened. Indigo scolds him, asking since when he became so unrestrained, disturbing the master's peace. The butler apologizes and explains that it is extremely important and he had to go beyond the limits. Indigo suggests talking about this outside. When it becomes unbearable, Var begins to talk about his madam. His owner does not immediately understand him, assuming that his wife has frightened ordinary people again. The man continues to speculate about what might have happened and at the same time condemns his wife's actions. The butler says that's not the point and desperately tries to find the right words. But at some point he gives up these attempts, directly saying that Indigo's wife has lost. The man can't believe what he heard and asks how this woman managed to lose. The butler swears that his words are true and tells that his madam and young master have disappeared. Var says he sent people to scout out the area and they vaguely saw 2 tied-up people inside the house. Having said that this is indeed strange, the man falls silent, and Indigo begins to think hard. But then he says that he understands everything and allows Var to go about his business. He says that he will sort it out himself. When Indigo returns to Light, he asks him if something happened to his wife. and the man confesses to him that he didn't expect that the bastard would be so cunning. Light says that, oddly enough, No is incredibly perceptive and asks what they should do now. And Indigo informs him of her intention to ask him for one more favor, and he allows it. The man's look changes dramatically immediately after receiving permission. Suspecting something is wrong, the monk tries to ask his interlocutor what he is going to do. He doesn't have time, and Indigo says that then he will bother the master again. In a barely audible, squeaky voice, Light's essence asks why. And the man is invitingly calling anyone to come to him, saying that they need to send a message to the Lotus sect. He asks to tell them that Master Light was ambushed by an evil cultivator, and also asks to immediately send the best craftsman to help him avenge the monk. For a while the trio stands in front of these pits in silence, but then the girl speaks up. The next step she takes is for Shine to quickly cover it all up with earth, and he, as soon as he hears the order, rushes from his place, hurrying to carry it out. The zombie moves between the pits so quickly that it is difficult to follow all of its movements. And the girl likes it. She is ready to watch her puppet's efforts for a long time. The woman who ran up to them, turning to her husband, informed him that everything was ready. She says that everyone quickly got ready and left safely. No, she says that they also did everything. Immediately after these words, the man gathers energy to make the next release. He concentrates and focuses his breathing so that everything goes smoothly. This is preparation for the construction of the formation, and Net is already raising the formation right now. This turns out to be a bit too much for his wife, because she has never seen anything like this before. Joy is also unprepared, but in her father's arms she feels protected. Her mother, however, cannot resist asking her husband what is going on. The Celestial takes its time, allowing the process to come to its conclusion. And then he says that this is the core, and after its activation, formation begins automatically. The woman asks why everything looks normal then, and Net replies that it does for now. Saying that everything will change when the enemy arrives, the man asks Joy to go and play for a while. Hearing the words that she and her mother need to sort something out, the girl laughs slyly. And her mother doesn't even try to object or explain anything anymore. But the little girl doesn't need this. Instead of continuing the dialogue, she deftly jumps out of her father's arms. And then she says that she will play alone in the yard, and allows her parents to play together at home. As she runs away, the girl asks them to be serious, practically taking a promise from the adults. No, he suggests to his wife to go into another room, saying that everything is ready, and the woman makes a suggestion. She thought that it would be support again, but the picture that unfolded before her eyes was completely different. Just look at this rubber ducky, peacefully rocking on the water with the slightest movement. No, he starts to undress without warning, causing the woman to be taken aback. She can't take her embarrassed gaze off the duckling, not knowing how to behave. Meanwhile, the man already lowers one of his feet into the water. The woman asks what she needs to do, and the celestial being asks her to climb up to him too. The woman asks him to wait and announces her intention to change into a swimsuit. And sometime later, she returns to the room, embarrassed. The woman moves slowly and says nothing, while avoiding even looking in her husband's direction. The same one opposite looks at the woman without taking his eyes off her, but also remains silent. The woman enters the water as carefully as she moved, and just as silently. Lowering herself all the way down, she offers to begin, and No asks if she remembers that technique for creating ice. The woman responds with a sheepish agreement, and the man expresses his approval. He tells her how his incarnation was formed, and that it is called the pure Yang Tyrant body. The woman clarifies what exactly this means, and the man begins to tell her about it. He says his meridians are thicker than those of an ordinary person, resulting in heat being generated. If he cannot be freed, his body will be engulfed in flames and eventually burned to ashes. Under such restrictions, the woman's Icean Foundation essence can help him with this. And in general, she is the most powerful of all, and in her past life, no, she didn't know about this, but now everything is different. The woman says that she will give him everything she has, and offers to start. The Celestial immediately moves from words to deeds, wanting to direct his assistant in the right direction. The woman watches his every move closely, because she is interested in what awaits them now. And the man surprises her by doing something unexpected, and this time it raises questions. The woman asks why he does it this way, and No says that the strength of his legs exceeds the strength of his arms. Having listened carefully to the celestial being, the woman takes his words for granted. Meanwhile, the man moves on to the next part, folding his hands into a special position. However, he doesn't stay in it for long, almost immediately changing one combination for another. Thus he establishes the foundation and begins the necessary process. The man's body instantly becomes hot, heating the water as well. The woman then moves on to her part, casting and releasing a spell of mystical ice. She commands it to pass through her legs, releasing the energy entirely. And literally moments later, it envelops the man's body. The man who gets out of the car introduces himself as Fishtrap Fleet, a leader of the Lotus sect. He says that after receiving news from the head of the Denials, he arrived to personally investigate the matter. He is allowed in and told that the patriarch is in the back hall, busy with Light's funeral. Sometime later, Fishtrap greets his uncle and asks him how he has been. He also asks why Uncle Light came to such an untimely, tragic end. The man notices that not only was his foundation destroyed, but his soul was also taken away. Indigo tells of her son's abduction and says that the monk died trying to save him. The man adds that his wife also fell into the trap of Light's killer and is being dramatic. Fishtrap wonders what kind of evil cultivator could surpass the Denial family in strength. The man doesn't believe it anymore because his aunt is a true descendant of her sect. Indigo says that this man does not belong to any of the known sects. He is a wanderer. Hearing that Nita has gotten his hands on his aunt's dowry, Fishtrap asks if it really is the Corpse King. Indigo speaks of her nephew's rich heritage and his right to take up law and order. The man adds that this was precisely the reason why he wanted to talk to him. Fishtrap asks him not to worry about it, saying that he became who he is only because of him. He says that he brought a team and powerful weapons with him, so he will kill Net and save his cousin and aunt. And Indigo thanks her nephew on behalf of her entire family. Meanwhile, Netta's wife begins to mentally panic. While the celestial being is filling up with strength, the woman thinks that her spiritual energy is almost depleted. She is afraid that she will not be able to fulfill her promise and wonders what she should do. Her worries turn out to be in vain, because at that moment, the celestial being opens his eyes. At the same time, he releases the accumulated energy from himself, testing his strength. Their grandeur, power, and force make a woman scream in surprise. The man, meanwhile, says that his foundation has been laid and he has achieved pure yang, the woman clarifies. The celestial says that everything went smoothly, only thanks to her. With a sigh of relief, the woman says that this is good and admits that she is very tired. Repeating these words again, she adds that she needs some rest. However, the man does not allow the woman to fall, appearing nearby in a timely manner. Holding her securely in his arms, he tells her she did a good job. Joy, looking inside, asks her mom and dad if they are working out. At the same time, the girl becomes curious about why there is so much steam around. The celestial being asks the little girl to behave quietly, explaining that her mother is tired. The girl switches to a whisper, submissively saying that she will remain silent. And none of them notice the all-too suspicious flash of light. And in that place, Fishtrap's disdainful snort is heard, and he speaks. Calling Nada and his wife shameless adulterers, the man says that they are engaged in such debauchery. He says that they are asking for certain death, since they dared to kidnap the heir of the Daniels. And, not intending to continue to delay any longer, the man gives the order to draw the weapon. One of his men immediately rushes to carry out the command, starting to assemble a sniper rifle. Having finished with this, the woman takes out a clip of cartridges and, having chosen the appropriate ones, loads them. Having fully completed her training, she hands over the weapon to her commander. And he, taking it in his hands, carefully aims the sniper rifle at the target. Her choice turns out to be quite unexpected. However, the man is confident in his decision and does not intend to back down from it. A woman stops him, asking if they shouldn't investigate first. Hearing the words that have reached her, Fishtrap asks if she really believes all the rumors. The man believes that this family is very dangerous and needs to be gotten rid of as quickly as possible. He says that there will be one target for each and orders his men to shoot now. And at the same moment, the fingers of each of the armed men pull the triggers almost synchronously. As the nimble projectile nearly reaches its target, a gasp of amazement is heard from the depths of the room. The mother and son, hearing the sound of a shot, shout out words for reinforcements in one voice. The woman says they are saved and suggests that it must have been Daniel's useless father who did this. She thinks that each of the 3 shots hit the target, namely, a blow to the head. Daniel admires his mother, finding her instincts incredible, and the woman takes this for granted. The man regrets that he was unable to torment Netta and did not take advantage of his wife and daughter. However, what they take to be the truth is not at all true, as evidenced by Fishtrap's amazement. Not understanding what is happening, the man decides to check everything himself again. And indeed, both the man and the woman look absolutely intact, not a scratch on them. Moreover, looking more closely at the face of the Celestial, Fishtrap is completely stunned. He can't believe how this is possible and asks this question out of control. But giving up so easily is not his style, and the man abruptly reloads his rifle. At the same time, he immediately gives the order to the others to shoot too. And now 3 bullets are heading towards a stationary target. Despite this, somehow miraculously, they don't reach her again. And Netta's wife asks him where this shooting is coming from. The man tells her not to worry about anything, saying that it is another batch of treasure chests. But the celestial being, in order to calm his wife down, decides to make his task a little easier. The wind that rises from its strength instantly blocks the view of the uninvited guests. One of the snipers asks what kind of spell it is that covers such an area, and the guest comes to his mind that No is a cultivator of the golden core. Fishtrap asks him to calm down, saying that such people are extremely rare, such people are destined to be kings. And he says that this is not a spell, but a ritual altar, causing no less surprise in his interlocutor. The man says that it cannot compare to those used by great sects and prestigious families. He suggests using soul-shaking thunder, confident that their targets will be unable to resist it. As soon as Fishtrap explains his plan, his subordinates immediately get to work. The commander sets the example first, and pulling the pin from the grenade, gives the order to throw the shells. Somehow, something also appears near his feet, and the man gets lost. For a few moments he can't even really comprehend what's happening, but he still pulls himself together. Fishtrap starts to ask who dared to do this, screaming in fear, but doesn't have time to finish. Because the very next moment, someone else's grenade goes off. The action of the projectile entails corresponding consequences. Slipping out of disobedient hands, Fishtrap's team's grenades await the same fate. Naturally, they explode in the same way as their predecessor. Sometime later, the mother and son have been filled with horror for several long moments. They can't believe that Fishtrap and his subordinates were neutralized. The woman addresses Net familiarly, asking him who he is. A sudden thought comes to her mind, and she asks impatiently if he has really reached the kingdom of foundation. By feeling the aura of the celestial being, the woman is convinced that the man has reached the realm of pure yang. Daniel can't believe it, remembering that 3 days ago, he was an ordinary and fragile mortal. His mother also understands something, and asks Nita if he is a follower of an ancient hidden sect. The Celestial answers evasively, saying that one could say that. And then the woman changes her shoes, saying that there was a misunderstanding, and she and her son were blind. No, he says he'll think about it, but right now, he's much more interested in finding out what they've managed to collect. Daniel doesn't know about the ancient hidden sects, so he asks his mother about them in a whisper. The woman says that they are descendants of the Dharma lineage, and they have secret teachings. It tells of what has happened since the time when heaven and humanity were separated. The woman says that their Dharma cell lineage originates from Lady Nixie, and the sect of the Ghost King is the branch of Milla, founded by Madame Might, the venerable immortal Phantomas. Lady Nixie was also a disciple of the true monarch Maz, one of the 4 great celestial masters. It is said that he studied in solitude with an immortal recluse named Mother Pristina, and it is very likely that Holy Mother Insight and Mother Pristina are the last ancient immortals. Those who are destined to learn from them are amazing and talented. They are even capable of founding their own sect. In the process of passing down their traditions from generation to generation, many powerful techniques were lost. Daniel loses his temper and becomes indignant, and his mother asks him to speak more quietly. No, meanwhile, says that this type of artifact processing is something completely new. The shell also has a soul-destroying seal that even a human can control. No, he admits that he never imagined that people would be able to develop such inventive methods. He assumes that what is now in his hand is an artifact for long-range attacks. No, it says that its power is much higher than that of a similar talisman. Raising his voice, Fishtrap asks the Celestial what strange technique he is using. He is also interested in how Netu managed to avoid their targeted fire and even control people. When Daniel and his mother scream, they utter appeals to Fishtrap. No, he answers, saying that this technique has 8 levels, and it is called the Capital Gate technique. It is aimed at confusing the enemy, and is used to deter ranged attacks. At the same time, the Capital Gate technique is capable of confusing the enemy's mind. No, he says that there are still a great many surprises awaiting them, and they haven't had time to see them all. Fishtrap refuses to believe him, saying that it is simply impossible. He says that there are only a handful of people in the world who can reach at least the 3rd level. That's why the man is amazed at how Netu managed to master the 8th, but he doesn't see anything difficult about it. The woman asks her nephew to speak more quietly and not to offend the master. She argues that he is the heir to an ancient hidden sect, and this puzzles Fishtrap even more. However, the man fearlessly advises Netu not to think that he will solve all the problems by holding them captive. Because in any situation they don't like, the government will use a new secret weapon. And at that time, it will not matter which sect No belongs to, because everything here will turn to ashes. The Celestial asks not to worry about this, saying that he will let them all go. Daniel and his mother can't believe their luck, so they check to see if it's true. But Fishtrap does not believe Net, considering him more cunning than a fox, and asking if he is not afraid of their revenge. The man asks if this chain of revenge will ever end, since they are in the same boat. No says he destroyed their foundations because they wanted to harm his family. And he adds that at the same time he wants to borrow from them some materials for alchemy. Not only are there no objections, the mother and son say that they will organize everything immediately. Sometime later, Fishtrap expresses regret to Indigo for not punishing the vile villain. The man says they were both cunning and tough, and his aunt and cousin are still in danger. All this time, Indigo is making incredible efforts not to break down, and his gaze moves aimlessly along the lines, unable to see the meaning in what is written due to blind rage. Var considers this to be blatant extortion, and is concerned about the legacy of the Ghost King's sect. But despite all his persuasion, the head of the Denial family orders the demand to be fulfilled. The butler cautiously asks whether it would not be better to inform the old lady about everything. And Indigo asks him why he wants to drag his mother here, because it's dangerous. She is very hot-tempered and will most likely lecture him, and then she may even take away his position. Indigo comes to a decision and orders everything to be prepared, and the butler accepts this order. When the man approaches Fishtrap, he addresses him in a weak voice. Indigo, placing her hand on his shoulder, says that he should apologize to his nephew. The man says that Fishtrap got hurt because he asked him to help him. He asks Indigo not to say that because it is his duty as a guardian of law and order. Fishtrap promises that he will immediately report this to the provincial authorities and ask for support. Removing his hand, Indigo asks his nephew to get some good rest first. He also admits that he has his own plan, and not everyone can cope with the gifts from their family. The man himself thinks that this young fool knows neither about the heavens nor about the earth beneath his feet. He condemns the fact that as soon as such an opportunity presents itself to him, he puts it on display. And the family of Netta is already in the intermediate stage of the kingdom of the creation of the foundation. A woman asks a celestial being how long he has been immortal in heaven. The man, in turn, asks why she suddenly decided to ask about this. Joy joins the conversation, wondering if heaven is fun and if there are tasty eggs there. Giving his half to his daughter, Net says that many gifts will come very soon, and he will make pills that will help her in creating the foundation. Meanwhile, the woman asks a question again, this time asking the celestial being about the disaster. He says that the realm of the immortals has always been a world where the strong prey on the weak. These extremely ambitious immortals entered into quarrels in pursuit of higher worlds and greater power. He talks about how after the Holy War and the War of the Three Religions, the kingdom was seriously wounded. As a result, the remaining cultivators decided to block all paths between earth and heaven. Netadharma's body was destroyed and his soul was greatly damaged, and he used up his last strength. The woman notes that immortals in stories are usually free and carefree. And the man tells her that when people tell stories, they put dreams and hopes into them. From what Net learned, he realized that the human world was in constant turmoil. After all, entire dynasties were born and died here, and 3 world wars took place here. Joy asks her father why people fight, and if it wouldn't be better if everyone built castles and played hide-and-seek together. The man says that if that were the case, it would be wonderful. Then Indigo's voice is heard from behind the door, asking Netta to come out and meet him. And these two, in one voice, exclaim joyfully, glad that the head of their family is here. Once outside, the Celestial asks Indigo if he has brought everything. The man says his wife and son insulted Nita, and it is entirely the fault of the head of the family. And all the things he requested are fully prepared as compensation for the insult inflicted. When Var shows the ransom, Indigo asks for his wife and son to be returned to him. No speaks out only when he is convinced that his demand has been fully met. And only then does he tell his wife to release the hostages. She carries out the order flawlessly, and now Indigo can see the members of her family. The man expresses hope that from now on, both sides will stop fighting and make peace. The celestial being hesitates for a moment before the outstretched hand, wondering whether to shake it, but then he finally decides, saying that he hopes for this too. As she leaves, Indigo says in a calm tone that, in that case, goodbye. And he himself can barely restrain himself from flaring up like a match, because for him, this is a blow below the belt. For a while, perfect silence reigns in the car's interior, but then it is broken. This is Daniel, and he asks his father why he let this man go so easily and even gave him a gift. Indigo tells him to be quiet, noting that his son has forgotten everything he taught him. The man asks if he had killed the man from the start. Would he be able to live now? A woman joins the conversation, asking her husband how he can scold their son. Indigo says that this concerns her too, and all she knows is how to fight and kill, living in her world. The woman asks if they can turn a blind eye to the fact that their family is disgraced and destroyed. And Indigo says that it is not in his nature to be cautious when attacking a rat, but it was necessary. His wife asks if he intended to use any technology when he shook Net's hand, and he replies that the cultivator will not be able to enjoy the chance to take from him what belongs to him. Joy commands Shine, telling the dead man to hold the box straight and carry it into the house. He answers something in his own dialect, but carries out the order unconditionally. The girl's parents supervise the entire process to prevent any unnecessary incidents. The woman asks if No really thinks these people will leave them alone if they are let go so easily. And the man says that he really hopes that they will keep their word and not bother them. His wife becomes curious if her husband has a backup plan and asks him about it. No says that now he is going to help Joy go beyond the ordinary and enter a new world. The woman says that she will help him, but the man retorts, saying that he will be the one helping her. She doesn't understand what exactly he means, so she hums thoughtfully. And then he asks if paired cultivation is also necessary for alchemy. The celestial being answers the woman with consent, saying that everything is indeed so. A little later, this doll moves from side to side in the air, and then Net's voice is heard. He asks Joy to play in the next room for a while, explaining that he and his mother will work on the pills. The girl agrees, saying that then she and this little one will go cook some tasty treats for her parents. Her mother intervenes in the conversation, asking her to be sure to call them if anything happens. But the girl asks her parents not to worry about this, because this little guardian will protect her. And the demonic creature from the ghost token reacts accordingly at that moment. Finding himself in a room with artifacts, the Celestial examines them meticulously and takes the one he needs. Handing it to the woman, he asks her to take it first and then follow his directions in taking the rest. Recalling one of the famous works, the woman says that in it the great elder used an oven. The man answers her that they have already entered the path and preserve their inner essence. He says that thanks to the yin and yang energies inside, pure pills of the highest quality can be formed. The woman is amazed that he can serve such purposes. No, it says that it is capable of giving life. Heaven and earth are created in it. It is the most amazing place. And immediately after this, the man suggests moving from words to action. The woman expresses agreement by drawing out an interjection instead of a clear answer. And immediately after that, she bites off a piece of the artifact offered to her. Sometime later, the woman, between attempts to catch her breath, turns to Net. She says that her whole body is simply burning unbearably, and he answers. The Celestial advises the woman to use Ganoderma to strengthen the body and replenish energy. After all, only by strengthening the body will she be able to resist the influence of yin and yang energies. The Celestial being makes this task easier for her by independently directing to the woman what she needs. She obediently takes in the Ganoderma and then the next artifact. At the moment when the woman swallows everything, the Celestial being begins to read a prayer. He says that people are the refined essence of heaven and earth, and everything returns to its origins. Melted in the precious cauldron, the nascent form emerges tempered by the fusion of yin and yang. The woman turns to her husband and begins to say that it seems that something is about to happen. She bursts into tears when she finishes her words by saying that she is about to give birth. And indeed, somehow miraculously, something comes out of it. The woman gasps in surprise, extremely embarrassed by what happened. And then she hesitantly asks the man if that's all. The Celestial says that a precious radiance shimmers, and the air is filled with a serene aura. He concludes that the pill is ready, and its quality is excellent solely thanks to his wife. In a suddenly weakening voice, the woman says that she is a little tired and will sleep a little. No, he allows her to do this, wanting to sleep well, because she worked so hard. Meanwhile, a car drives up to the Denial's estate. When the couple comes out, the butler greets his master. Indigo asks him if all the preparations are finished. And the man agrees, adding that everything was arranged properly. Indigo expresses satisfaction with this and suggests getting down to business. He is the first to enter the dark room, barely containing the anticipation that is bursting out. And yet, emotions can be controlled because complete concentration is essential for this task. Before taking action, the man stares into the empty eye sockets opposite for a while. But delay could cost him dearly, and Indigo decides not to delay. The first step is followed by the second. The man approaches the matter with the utmost care. Actions begin to be accompanied by words. Indigo speaks of the spirit of the night and of the fetters that bind souls. To these words are added the following about the locust worm that gnaws at the heart, and the soul descends into the heels. Further on in the plan, the man says that the finger serves as a guide, and tears as a lock. When he thinks the puppet has moved, Daniel screams and turns to his mother. He asks her what his father is doing, because he has never seen anything like this before. And the woman says that Indigo used the earth from the grave of an offended spirit, and the oil from a vicious corpse. This is a secret technique that allows the Ghost King sect to dominate the entire Southeast. It is passed down exclusively through the direct line of the head of the family in each generation of the Denial family. This technique is called the Blood Ghost Curse, which can strike down an enemy within 100 miles. Daniel asks why the old man didn't teach him this and gets an answer. The woman says that Indigo wanted to wait until he reached the foundation level, but things didn't go according to plan. Meanwhile, the head of their family continues to read the spell, saying that during the day he is a ghost, and at night he is a demon. He orders that he be condemned to eternal wandering without a place to return to, and the man finishes everything with a loud thrust of needles into the animated body of the ball-jointed doll. Net's voice can be heard from the house, addressing his daughter. He says that if she eats this, she will be able to make ice cream with her own hands. First of all, the girl clarifies whether this is true, and then says that it is very cool. The girl promises to make delicious ice cream with sheep flavor and honey for her mom and dad, and the woman can't resist turning to her husband and letting out a little laugh of affection. Meanwhile, the girl is already chewing the pill, anticipating what miracles she will be able to perform. Under the influence of such emotions, the baby is in a hurry to swallow the contents of her mouth as quickly as possible. She barely has time to do this when she screams and says, "Oh no." The girl's mother asks her what happened, and the little girl says that she didn't have time to try the pill. This brings a new dose of tenderness to the woman, but she restrains herself so as not to embarrass her daughter. But the girl doesn't care at all because she falls unconscious. The celestial being, prepared for this, manages to catch his daughter just in time. His wife, turning to her husband with concern, asks him what is going on. The man asks her not to worry, saying that this is how the pill began to work. The girl is sleeping, and when she wakes up, she will immediately reach the peak of purification of her vital energy. As soon as he manages to finish his thought, the man's heart hits his ribs with force. and then it squeezes him, as if in a vice, and the celestial falls to his knees from the inability to do anything. Now the woman begins to worry about her husband, asking him what is wrong with him. Before speaking, the celestial clenches his teeth, trying to overcome the pain. When he succeeds, the first thing No worries about is getting Joy into bed. Shine accepts the order, responding something in his own language, and hurries to carry out the task. And only then does the celestial tell his woman that their enemies have begun to act. She doesn't understand how this is possible, because they are 100 kilometers away from them, and now the horizon is clear. No says that this is the Yin Mountain's devil curse, and it can hit a target at a long distance. The woman becomes scared, and, starting to stutter, asks what they should do now. The man replies that the most important thing here is not to panic. He already has thoughts. However, he says he needs a woman's help to strike back at these people. She agrees, saying that if he needs her, he can safely use her. She is for justice. Handing the object to the woman, the celestial being asks her to take it and place it at her waist, and she clarifies whether this will be enough for them to respond to their enemies. And, no, telling her about the classification of curses, he says which one this one belongs to. The celestial says that the devil's curse is triggered when there is something that carries the target's aura. By using such an item, the cursed are forced to direct energy at a target from afar. Eventually, the target is destroyed by the excessive, forceful injection of energy into it. The woman clarifies whether the object in her hands is fabric from the clothes of that villain. No confirms this, saying that he will turn his own power against him, such as karma. Hearing that the weakened Daniel will not last long, the woman agrees to help. Even though she is embarrassed to fulfill Net's request, she does not utter a single sound. Meanwhile, the man does his part, penetrating the woman's body, and at the same time, the thing, with energy. Almost immediately after this, a whirlpool begins to swirl from the epicenter. And when the space becomes too small for him, the energy flow rushes high up. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the smoke from heavy incense already fills the entire room. Indigo continues to focus intently, not wanting to allow even the slightest mistake. His son asks why it hasn't worked yet, and whether this spell is even effective or not. His mother begins to explain to the naughty child what exactly this is, and to lecture him. And Daniel says that this is too much trouble, and it would be better if they prepared more artifacts for him. As soon as he starts talking about how he will torture Nita's wife and daughter, he stops short. His mother, who sensed something was wrong, casts a questioning glance at the man who had suspiciously fallen silent so quickly. But this is not even necessary, as Daniel already begins to scream from unbearable pain. It then becomes clear that everything is much more serious than one might expect. And the woman, in an extremely concerned tone, asks her son what's wrong with him, but he feels so bad that he can't utter a single word. And only involuntary sounds keep escaping from the mouth, along with blood. The woman asks her son what's wrong with him, and he says that his voice is breaking. At this moment, Indigo is distracted from her work and approaches the heir. He asks him not to worry about anything, and to let his father watch. The first thing the man does is check Daniel's heartbeat and make a conclusion. He claims that the man's pulse is stable, and there are no abnormalities. Daniel confirms his father's words the very next moment, standing up as if nothing had happened. Looking at his hands in surprise, he says that everything suddenly became okay. Indigo asks if he is sure, and the man agrees, although he finds it strange. His father asks his son to rest before his breathing energy dissipates, and he will continue. Daniel agrees and asks his father to finish off Net and beat him to death, and then they will go get the body. The man doesn't respond to this, returning to the spirit destruction spell without further ado. Without lingering in one place for long, he immediately moves on to the second spell, and then the man is enveloped in a familiar ominous aura, regaining control. Daniel is enjoying this, already anticipating how he will mock Net's wife and their daughter. But he can only enjoy these thoughts for a short time. The state returns. And now he is in even more pain than before, coughing up blood. Everything happens so quickly that his mother doesn't even have time to react. The woman asks her husband to stop, suggesting that something is clearly wrong. The man cannot understand what is happening and, out of desperation, asks it out loud. He turns to the servants, ordering them to take his son to the hospital for a full examination. His orders are carried out, and the next day Indigo stands at the man's bedside with the results. Even though he looks peaceful, there's something clearly wrong with him. And, without waiting for an answer, the worried mother asks what's wrong with her son. Indigo says that there are two most terrible curses, one of which is beyond their capabilities. The second is one whose effect cannot be tracked, no matter what research is conducted. The woman becomes even more puzzled, asking what they should do then. And her husband replies that the first thing to do is to prepare the car. Joy's happy voice comes from Netta's house, saying that she can make ice cream too. Handing a few to her parents, she offers them a taste of the fruits of her creations. The girl proudly declares that she made them all herself. She asks her parents again for some ice, and they finally agree. Her mother casually asks her husband if they have settled things, and he asks the woman not to worry about it, since their friends will come to them again themselves. Indigo's voice is heard from behind the door, calling out respectfully and asking Nita to come out to meet him. The man turns to his wife, reminding her of his words and suggesting that she go and see what Indigo wants. Amazed by her husband's insight, the woman cannot help but laugh with admiration and satisfaction. When they leave, their interlocutor remains silent, even when the stretcher with his son approaches him. No, jokingly, he notes that Indigo has visited him twice recently and asks about the purpose of this visit. He makes a colossal effort to save face, but he can't help but click his tongue in irritation. Indigo says that his wife says Net is skilled in the healing arts and that he has opened her eyes. The man says it was just a trivial trick, not worth mentioning. Indigo says that as soon as his son returned home, he was struck by a serious illness and talks about the examination. He says that he came specifically to ask Net for help in shedding light on this mystery. The celestial being says that the man is too kind because he has already given him a very valuable gift. However, he adds that it would be impolite to refuse help, so he agrees to examine Daniel. Indigo can barely control himself so as not to tell Net everything he thinks about him. The celestial being himself at this moment, although he notices the state of his interlocutor, does not show it in any way. Finally forcing herself to do so, Indigo respectfully thanks Netta. And he approaches his patient, allowing himself an unperturbed smile. The first thing the man does, just like Daniel's father did before, is pretend to check his pulse. But instead of saying that the indicators are normal, he says that it is terrible, worrying his father. No says that for some reason the base of Daniel's heart was damaged, as if he had hurt someone. The man continues, saying that he was struck by a spell called the Curse of Spiritual Chaos. He says that Daniel's soul was seriously wounded and he was left unconscious, which is very dangerous. It's becoming increasingly difficult for Indigo to control himself, but for now he's managing it. The man asks Netta if there is a way to save his son. He says that although it is very dangerous, it is still not impossible, but there is a caveat. Indigo takes an interest in her, asking the Celestial to speak everything in plain text. He replies that to remove this curse, a fortune of rare herbs and spiritual treasures will be required. Indigo is enraged by such blatant impudence, boiling over even more, and yet he again restrains himself, saying that the most important thing for him is saving his son. Showing Indigo a sheet of paper, Netta's wife says that this is the very same list. The man immediately begins to study it, and with each new line, he feels more and more sick. Finally tearing up the sheet, he screams, saying that this is simply outrageous. Indigo says that it seems that Net has decided to deceive him, because this will completely deplete his wealth. The man asks what he would choose then, losing his family's future or losing his accumulated savings. Indigo says that he could still take these extremely rare herbs and medicines, but only the jade skeleton of the earthly fire is a high-quality material for making artifacts, and even a single bolt of lightning from a tree split by a clap of thunder is incredibly rare. Saying that there are 100 charges in a clap of thunder, the man asks where Netta thinks he should look for all this. And he asks in turn why he needs his help if Indigo himself knows what is needed to treat his son. The man cools down a little, clarifying what will happen if the treatment is ineffective. No, it says that if this is really the case, then no matter what, death will still be inevitable. And then Indigo promises to make every effort to collect all the necessary resources. Thus, he completely entrusts his son's life into the hands of his enemy. Joy asks her father why these people brought this evil guy to them again. No, he says that he is sick and Dad must cure him because heaven values human lives, help is needed. His wife asks if her husband really wants to cure this terrible man. And the man replies that he will not only cure him, but also help him rebuild his foundation. The woman asks if all this will cost them a lot, since she manages the house very well. And No replies that Daniel's soul is sealed by a secret art, so his family cannot free it. The woman is surprised by this and asks why they asked them to prepare so much stuff then. The Celestial says that the talismans and seals they used are consumables. He adds that he must make some suitable artifacts to counter stronger enemies. And he says that the things he demanded from Indigo are priceless treasures that he deprived his family of. This means that after they heal him, they can attack with renewed vigor. So, since they are safe for now, they need to prepare properly. Meanwhile, Indigo returns home and enters the room where his wife should be. The woman does not immediately notice those who entered, being immersed in deep thoughts. But as soon as this happens, she jumps up from her seat and asks where her son is. Indigo places a piece of paper with demands in front of her and begins to speak furiously. Turning to the butler, he orders him to bring the elderly lady here. His wife asks if this cunning boy is trying to completely empty all of their family's supplies. Indigo says that they will give him everything he asks for because now the most important thing is saving their son. After all, if he dies, everything they have invested in him all these years will be destroyed in an instant. Sometime later, a heavy box is lowered again in front of Netta and his family's house. Indigo says that inside is everything they asked him for. The Celestial is not going to blindly take the man's word for it, so he decides to check everything out for himself. A wave of his finger causes the massive lid to open, and Net's eyes immediately begin to count everything. He says that there are enough herbs, and this skeleton, although not of the best quality, will be enough. The quality of the thunder-split wood is also not first class, but it looks like it has withstood 100 lightning strikes. And Netu becomes curious about how Indigo managed to get it, so he asks him about it. The man replies that the most advanced laboratories can artificially generate thunder and lightning. But its production required a year's supply of electricity from the entire city, which is no easy task. But the man is much more interested in whether it will work, and Net replies that it should barely be enough. Then Indigo says that in that case, he should ask the Celestial to begin treatment immediately. But just as the man is about to take the first step, No stops him. When asked what the matter is, the Celestial says that the secret art of his sect should not be seen by outsiders. But he promises that in a few days his son will return home safe and sound. It's not like Indigo has a choice, so he expresses hope that No will keep his word. When he leaves, Net looks in surprise at the tree split by artificial lightning. He is amazed that those who have eaten raw flesh and blood are able to come closer to enlightenment, but suspicions creep into the man's head that this is connected with problems in the realm of the Immortals. The woman asks if he really means to say that things like Newtonian mechanics are about improvement, and the man says that directing fire and calling down lightning is part of the path. He asks his wife to later get him a complete set of textbooks on physics, mathematics, and chemistry, and now he suggests that she begin by first creating several pills, and then artifacts. After thinking for a moment, the woman asks if they will create pills inside her again, and the answer is unwavering agreement. Without arguing with her husband, the woman takes the same position as before and performs all the same actions. The Celestial does the same, helping her control and direct the energy. During the creation process, the woman tries to be silent, but she cannot hold back her moans. This time she manages to produce several pills at once. Once it's all over, Net tells us what they're called and what they're for. For example, now in his hands is a pill of eternal beauty, which helps to preserve the youth of the skin. The woman is amazed by this and asks if it is true because she considers it incredible. While she accepts it, she receives consent and a small fact from her husband's past life. He says that they were once in great demand among the Immortals, and he created them periodically. The woman moans blissfully because she likes not only the effect of this pill, but also its incredible taste. No, he stretches, saying that now it's time for them to get down to the main business. Turning again to the woman, he invites her to start creating artifacts, and she agrees. No, it says that artifacts are divided into 3 types: auxiliary, offensive, and spiritual. But since they have rather limited conditions, he suggests making only 2 useful ones. The woman says that the thing is quite big and asks if she will fit inside it. No begins to talk about the differences between magical artifacts and pill enhancements. He says that only by relying on Great Bank in 6 internal organs can it survive. The woman clarifies whether she understood correctly that he meant her stomach. The man says that this is the sea of grain and water, the source where life energy and blood are produced. He draws a parallel with ancient times, when they forged a sword that was tempered in fire. Thus, cooled in water, only after hundreds of improvements can it become a recognized artifact. Cultivators of a certain level can integrate artifacts into the body and store them there. Having finished the detailed story of how it all happens, the man swallows the pill. As he swallows it, he begins to talk about the method he taught his wife. According to him, each of them uses their own internal cultivation power, yin or yang. Once this jade core has been forged and tempered 100 times, the magical artifact will be ready. The woman chuckles, thus showing that she understood what he wanted to convey to her. In the very next moment, she feels someone else's lips on hers. The moment the Celestial starts this process, the energies of the 2 people merge together. And the next thing happens, something that has never happened before. The new force formed from the combination of the 2 energies is so strong that the material of their clothes cannot withstand it. Young people are enveloped only by energy, in its original form, because it is pure heat. All this is necessary in order to temper the artifact with the fire of this yin energy, and at the moment when the man's body has given him the maximum, the artifact begins to move upward. Reaching the lips of the celestial being, it rolls fluidly into the woman's mouth, beginning its descent there. The moment the artifact descends into her chest, the woman feels something change. She clearly feels how his transformation is taking place, and he becomes much stronger. All this is due to her own energy, which helps to cool the artifact with icy cold. And so, after 100 temperings, it becomes an ideal magical artifact. The decoction that was brought just a few minutes ago is also cooling down, completely forgotten. The worried mother and father are both deep in thought about their own son. But now, across the estate, in the direction of the room they are in, someone is hurrying. And that someone turns out to be the faithful butler, informing his master that there is news. Indigo asks Vara how the situation is, and he says that the family was under surveillance. It seems they have taken action, although the spies cannot see exactly how the young master is being treated. Indigo remarks that this is the best they can do for now, but they cannot be allowed to escape. While they are talking, they don't notice how these tentacles begin to crawl into the room. And yet, at some point, their presence becomes too noticeable for the couple, and a little later even the butler gets the creeps and he hugs himself in an attempt to stop the uncontrollable trembling. The healing brew instantly turns into poison, beginning to wail like a swarm of otherworldly voices in a sing-song voice. They are interrupted by the strong-willed and creaky voice of a woman who begins to scold Indigo. Daniel's mother is the first to come to her senses, coming to her senses and turning to her dear mother-in-law. She also loudly clicks her wooden stick on the stone floor, knocking a loud sound out of it. Calling everyone to silence with just one look, the old woman waits for an explanation. Her son also pulls himself together and, turning to his mother, offers to provide them to her. But the woman says that explanations are the words of the weak. Their sect has never justified itself in the face of difficulties. She calls her son a useless brat and expresses doubts about the correctness of her choice. Her daughter-in-law asks the woman not to let anger harm her health and briefly brings her up to date. But she shuts her up, reminding her that her own dowry is gone and her foundation is destroyed. The old woman begins to grumble about how dissolute and hopeless the current generation is. She calls on everyone to follow her, saying that she must see everything herself. Indigo expresses joy that his mother has finally decided to take action, and she says that when she leaves, the future of the Ghost King sect will fall on the shoulders of her precious grandson. She is outraged that there are fools who dare to threaten the future of her Ghost King sect, and the woman says that she will send their souls straight to the underworld, to their ancestors. Having finished her fiery speech, she takes a step, and her son cries out in delight. He is not only surprised, but also impressed by his mother's walking on air. The man asks her if she has really reached the peak of the first level of the Golden Core, but the offended woman leaves his question unanswered. And then Indigo begins to talk about what stage their opponent is currently at, and he is happy that against the Golden Core level cultivator, he is nothing more than a small child. Meanwhile, the couple continues their games and fun with pills and artifacts. But this time, the woman feels something different inside her. She is even more surprised when the man gently takes her hand and pulls her closer to him. No, he begins to talk about the symbol of marriage in this world and remembers that his incarnation never gave her rings. And he says that this particular artifact came to his mind, a magic ring made of red-hot wood. The woman asks what kind of ring he has then, and the man answers her that usually such rings are made in pairs. A woman becomes so overcome with feelings for her husband that she cannot find the right words. Well, at that moment, he senses the danger and asks if she remembers how to use these artifacts. No says that their enemies are here again, and, as he thought, there is a high-level cultivator among them. At the same time, the celestial being asks his wife to relax and go meet his guests. This is what they do, but at first no one present dares to speak. No is the first to break the silence, asking Indigo who the elderly lady is. His interlocutor honestly introduces her as his mother and begins to list her titles and achievements. The woman, meanwhile, asks if she can inquire about how her grandson's treatment is going. No, he says it was difficult, but fortunately he succeeded. He adds that it was thanks to the rare treasures collected by Indigo that he was able to save her grandson. The woman's gaze hardens, but she has no intention of acting impulsively now. First of all, she wants to see something for herself, and for that, she needs special vision. After using it, she sees what she wanted, and this gives birth to new thoughts in her head. She allows herself to think and pause for just a couple of moments. And after that, the woman says that in that case, they should take Daniel home. No, he is not going to object to her. On the contrary, he is expressing submissive consent. Almost at the same moment, Daniel himself runs out of the house and seeing his grandmother, screams with joy. Joy addresses him, saying that her dad cured him and he can't do evil things anymore. Daniel agrees to this too quickly, promising that he will definitely improve. He hugs his grandmother, making a joyful sound and turning to her again. And then he whispers to the old woman to protect her grandson and kill all these people. The woman immediately finds her opponent with her sharp and tenacious gaze, and he crosses his own with it, responding in exactly the same way. And then the old woman says that Daniel has forgotten all her instructions and tells him to copy the Holy Scriptures. The woman tells Net that they will leave now and come another day to express their gratitude. Finally, already starting her journey, she says goodbye to the celestial being with the words that they will see each other later. A little later, the woman asks her husband why these people didn't do anything. No, he asks her not to relax too much, because this old woman just checked them and the situation around them. She is not impulsive and arrogant like Daniel, nor is she overly vain and stuck up like his mother, but she is an even more cautious and meticulous hunter than her son, who will plan everything carefully. Meanwhile, Daniel asks his grandmother why she didn't destroy them on the spot. He doesn't understand this even more, because she has reached the golden core in cultivation. The woman only chuckled smugly in response and paused. And then he agrees that he can start acting right now, but he doesn't know if Net did anything else to him. Instead of a direct answer, the man mockingly asks the question again. And then, turning ingratiatingly to his grandmother, he says that he is scared. The woman says that, first and foremost, they must remain vigilant. They also have to ensure Daniel's safety and preserve their family's remaining resources. On the one hand, she is outraged that Net went against her sect, but on the other hand, she even admires him. Daniel is at a loss when he hears the reason why she is going to destroy the Celestial. And then Indigo speaks up, pulling her son up and saying that his grandmother is teaching him wisdom and that he needs to listen to her. But the woman, on the contrary, bristles, telling her son that he is just as hopeless. After listening to her carefully, the man says that he knows that he is wrong. The woman says that they are no different from her husband, who wanted everything at once, which was his undoing. She is outraged that at her age she is forced to work hard and worry about her own family. Daniel says she is the rock of their family and promises that he will change. The man says that he will show no mercy to his enemies and they will destroy them and scatter their souls to the wind. Sometime later, when they are already at their estate, the woman begins to act. While throwing the necessary creatures into the common cauldron, she mentally repeats to herself every step she takes. After this, the old woman moves on to the next point of the plan, carefully preparing everything. As soon as she finishes preparing, she approaches her grandson. By knocking on the slab several times, the woman summons a special symbol around Daniel. By that time, the gruel from the reptiles has steeped, and the old woman is already using it. She needs this in order to leave these symbols on her grandson's entire body. After this, the old woman concentrates and begins to mentally recite the spell to herself. As soon as she finishes, with a sharp movement, she directs the energy into one of her grandson's meridians. And he turns to his grandmother, asking what it is and why he didn't know about anything like this. She says it's the formation of the Absolute Spirit, their family's secret method. It blocks spells. The woman adds that, in this way, she will be able to act freely to destroy their enemy. Meanwhile, this same enemy is studying his artifacts, figuring out how they can be used. But he is always vigilant, and his reflexes are honed, so he feels even the slightest vibration in the air. Just like now, when space is distorted by the old witch's spell. And through the portal she opened, someone seeps through with a corresponding sound. And this guest is not alone. The elderly woman took care of everything perfectly. So, just a couple of minutes later, a whole horde of ghostly corpses is already wandering towards the house of Netta and his family. But the Celestial was prepared for this and warned the others in advance, and now asks the question. Telling his wife that the enemies are already here, he asks if she is ready, and she says yes. Their pet corpse also expresses its agreement, clutching its weapon tighter to itself. From this car comes the voice of an elderly lady who is talking to her son. She talks about the reason why their Ghost King sect was able to gain a foothold in this world. The woman believes that even if they cannot kill the enemy, they must wear him down as much as possible. This way, he can give them his cards so that they can deal him the decisive, fatal blow. Meanwhile, sounds of fighting have been heard for some time now, near the vicinity of Nita's house. The Celestial fights coldly but effectively, tearing apart every enemy in his path. His wife also does not stand aside, but uses a slightly different technique. Although it is also very effective and allows you to deal with even several enemies at the same time. But it also has its downsides. It is impossible to keep track of everything that is happening around the entire perimeter, and this is dangerous. And yet, this detail can easily be covered by a faithful ally, ready to come to the rescue in time. Just like now, when Shine covers the rear of his masters. With such coordinated work, about an hour later, they manage to reclaim their territory. The woman, panting with fatigue, asks if all their enemies have been destroyed. No, he thinks that they need to be prepared, because it was just a test to assess their strength. And just when he has time to guess what will happen next, his words are confirmed. Having sensed the alien aura, the Celestial informs everyone else that reinforcements have arrived. And no, analyzing them, he notes that each of them is at the middle level of the Kingdom of Foundation. He says he didn't expect that in their day and age, such a vicious technique would be passed down through generations. Meanwhile, Indigo is amazed that his mother released so many Foundation Kingdom puppets. The man asks his mother where they are all from, and she, saying that he knows them all, begins to list them. Indigo says that they were either masters of the previous generation or his peers. The woman brushes off his words. Speaking about her own, she believes that Net and his wife have almost exhausted their strength. She is confident that they don't even need to lift a finger to kill them all. Indigo says that they also have secret and unknown techniques. According to her nephew, it is not easy. The woman says that improvement relies on the spiritual energy of one's location. But there is very little spiritual energy here, so there is no need to be afraid of trivial education. She believes that even if their enemies have some tricks up their sleeve, it will all be over once the puppets attack. Hearing the words about a trump card just in case, Indigo says that no one expects anything else from his mother. The man says that these puppets can use unique spells that were available to them during life. And this is the reason why they will not be so easy to defeat. In a moment, there is no one in the place where one of the puppets had just stood. Not only does she move towards her enemy with impressive speed, but she also activates her technique on the fly. This makes the Celestial displeased, yet such an enemy managed to exceed his expectations. However, the man is not going to give up so easily. Even though his opponent is fast, he is also no slouch. Not only does Netu manage to discern his movements, but he also manages to strike back. But, carried away by one opponent, he does not see that the other is preparing his own spell. It's called the Peacock King's spell, and has a decent range. No, he manages to avoid its action, but he does it at the very last moment. Meanwhile, the opponents are moving towards him as if nothing had happened, without even receiving a scratch. The Celestial frowns sternly, because this scenario is truly unexpected for him. Shine rushes to help his master, growling furiously in his own language and waving a sniper rifle. Even though he uses it inappropriately, it turns out to be more than enough. But only for the first few attacks, his opponents adapt quickly. The opponents facing Netta's wife are also quite serious, so the woman is internally tormented by doubts. Her gaze falls on the shorter one, assuming that he will be the first to attack. She is wrong, but only partly, because this happens. And while his bulky ally is still on the way, nimble and agile, the dead man attacks. The woman manages to notice him in time, but she knows for sure that she won't be able to block such a blow. This is not necessary, since other undead cope with this task perfectly well. But even so, the woman does not intend to stand aside, but to use all possible means. While her puppet is busy fighting, she herself is going to provide support with the second opponent. The thrown talisman finds its target with impeccable precision, and it begins to reveal its power already on the fly, which not only attacks, but also slows down the enemy. Defocused, he begins to feel some strange pressure on his neck. And when the haze clears, the reason for this and more becomes clearly visible. And yet the woman turns to her husband, saying that she can no longer stand it. The man, already preoccupied with the battle, raises his voice and orders her to use the artifact. The woman hesitates a little, but still gives her husband her consent. However, the very next moment they both use the Ring of Heavenly Thunder. This is how they produce the maximum emission, namely thunder that shakes the sky. Indigo is amazed by the power of this artifact because such a thunder spell is very powerful. His mother smugly talks about how they forced their enemies to use him while they rested. She reproaches her son for being stingy and always trying to settle everything with the least expense. And then he says that his mother taught him a lesson that he will remember, causing her pleasure. The woman asks permission to put in a little effort to make it all end. She uses the golden core technique, transmitting it through space. And their opponents feel the atmosphere suddenly thickening at the same moment. The woman, beginning to panic, turns uncontrollably to her husband. But he doesn't answer her because he's analyzing the current situation. The woman screams again, this time in admiration of such a powerful aura. But that's not all the surprises, and they see the next one literally right now. Already in her mind, the woman is amazed at how quickly their opponent moves. And, noticing a dead man next to her husband, she screams, warning the celestial being of danger. The same one begins to talk about the activation of the formation of 8 gates, and it releases its energy the very next moment. The sudden technique briefly delays their opponent, giving them a bit of a head start. During this time, Net manages to approach his wife and grab her firmly. This is just enough to avoid a powerful attack. But this makes the elderly lady of the Denial family tense. She doesn't want to believe that these people still have any tricks up their sleeve. Indigo can't believe it either, especially considering that their opponents have no strength left. The woman guesses that this formation is capable of causing 2 debuffs on their puppets. Not only does it disperse the energy of cultivators' corpses, but it also absorbs it and collects it. Noting that their balance is changing, the old woman says that they will not last long. Indigo refuses to accept the fact that they will be tricked again, which makes him swear. Then his mother says that she will stop them using her last secret weapon, and she furiously expresses the desire for her enemies to turn to dust. Indigo tenses up, cautiously saying that this will attract the attention of the authorities. His mother doesn't see a problem with this, saying that they will pay them off later, but now a signal is needed. Knowing that it is useless to argue with his mother, the man agrees to do it. Shouting into the receiver the words about the initial coordinates, he orders them to be launched immediately. Meanwhile, No continues to fight with one of his opponents. His wife also tries to do everything in her power to provide her husband with some kind of support. So at some point, they manage to deal with these puppets too. Lost in her thoughts, the woman does not immediately notice the objects approaching them. However, it still happens, but she doesn't have time to say anything. There are a lot of shells, and they are approaching at a breakneck speed, which is very problematic. And because of this, it seems that it is impossible to stop them all, or to repel the attack in principle. Meanwhile, they arrive at their final destination, causing their senders to scream with joy. Indigo calls his enemies little scum, and says there won't be a single piece left of them. Meanwhile, his phone starts ringing, and the man happily accepts the call. The interlocutor asks him what the noise is, and what is going on there. Calling him Director King, Indigo says they were simply clearing out an abandoned area. The same one asks the man to be more careful, otherwise he will not be able to keep the situation under control. Indigo asks his interlocutor not to worry, and his mother suggests that he go and look at the corpses, and so they do, making their way from the car to the disaster site in absolute silence. Well, they are in for a surprise, although their reactions, honed over the years, allow them to react quickly. Reflecting the attack, the woman asks her opponents how they dare challenge her. She says that this place is far from the formations they established, and they cannot win. Indigo notes that their sneak attack has failed, and he suggests that they meet their end here, to die. No shouts at his woman to activate her artifact, offering to release its full power. And she doesn't need a repeat invitation. The young people work harmoniously. The old woman asks how this is possible and screams, asking what they did. The young men are not going to give her verbal answers, instead concentrating on the attack. The woman finds this amazing because her mana continues to flow like a spring. And Net turns to the elderly lady, saying that all this became possible thanks to her son. Hearing the words that they are close to the golden cores, the two are taken aback. Indigo doesn't understand how many artifacts there were back then and tries to analyze the situation. The answer comes by itself. It suggests that it is all about the spiritual treasure. No, he says that it is easy to compete in strength on equal terms, and the one with more mana wins. The woman refuses to believe what is happening because the missiles they sent were extremely powerful. No, I agree with her. It was indeed powerful. But there is one little trick here. His interlocutor becomes interested in how they managed to avoid a head-on attack back then. And, enjoying his superiority, the man hesitates for a while before answering. And then he says that they lost for one simple reason: he had more aces up his sleeve. And the Celestial remembers what happened a few minutes before. The man then used the small teleport of the 8 gates of Life Gate. By opening them, he expanded the territory to take everyone else with him. And he managed to do this literally, just a few moments before the impact. This is precisely the reason why there was not a single scratch on any of them. And at that moment, the young people simply waited out the attack, allowing themselves to rest. Now Net asks why he bought this place, because there is not much spiritual energy here. And he, in principle, without even intending to wait for an answer, tells the reason himself. At the same time, he reaches out somewhere, and the old woman tensely asks what he is trying to do. However, she doesn't have enough strength to do more, so Net touches her clothes without hindrance. Her eyes widen in realization of what the man is about to do, but it is too late. Meanwhile, he achieves his goal, knocking a drawn-out scream out of the old woman. No, it uses advanced star-absorbing art, core plundering. And the old woman, having flown back, collapses from impotence and indignation. Her son looks at her with sympathy for just a few moments, after which he begins to scream. He asks Netta if he understands what he is doing, since killing a cultivator is taboo. Indigo begins to threaten his opponents, but does not even have time to finish. Interrupting him, the woman says that her husband told her to take everything from him. Starting to smile sweetly, she asks me to just be patient for a little while. The man asks her to stop, but the woman doesn't even listen to him. And he has no strength left, nor even the words to resist her. A little later, the space is cut by an enthusiastic female scream, addressing her husband. The woman says that this guy's essence is much richer than the others. And she adds that she finds this essence truly powerful. Annette says that this person is at the peak of forming the foundation. Talking about this, after listening to him to the end, the woman asks what they will do with them. Indigo is also very interested in this question, and he reminds her that murder is illegal. The man starts to say something about the police and the army, but quickly falls silent. No, reminding him of the help the denials provided him, he says that he will not be ungrateful. The man advises the mother and son to hurry home, as very soon he will pay them a visit to express his gratitude. Indigo doesn't say a word, and all his mother can manage is a frightened cry. They return to their car too abruptly and slam the door too loudly. What can we say about the desperation with which the driver presses the gas pedal to the floor? Well, the couple watches with rapture as these two walk away, tails between their legs, like rats. The next day, Joy greets her parents, and her mother tells her it's time for her to eat. The little girl asks her father if he drove away all the bad guys, and he says yes. Cuddling the man, the girl says that her daddy is the best. Now the celestial being reacts more calmly to this little girl's kisses. And she, saying that this is his reward, asks the man if he likes her. Reciprocating the baby's feelings, Net says that there is no better reward in the whole world. Meanwhile, the girl's mother invites the family to the table, saying that the food is ready. The girl makes contented sounds as she greedily devours the noodles. Her mother is more reserved, but just as happy to share a meal. And No thinks that he has spent his whole life searching for the path in order to understand that he has never truly lived. And, having enjoyed the beautiful view, the man joins his family, calling the food delicious. Sometime later, his woman asks if he will now prepare for the formation of the core. The man says he plans to use the indigo core as a base to form a corpse. His interlocutor clarifies whether this will be similar to what the matriarch of this family used against them. No, it says that this technique could only unlock the potential of a mortal body. This is also the simplest form for improving a corpse. The technology for improving the cultivator was also good, but at the same time imperfect. The technique used by Net to improve the corpse allows for continuous evolution. The woman asks why immortals like him even know such terrifying spells. No, he says that spells in themselves are neither good nor bad, and in general, even gods are not holy. Ancient cultivators understood both yin and yang, and after killing an enemy, they would turn him into a doll. The strongest of them could form an entire army, possessing such limitless power. The celestial being tells how, during one of the battles, the great god turned his relatives into corpses, and the Yellow Emperor was able to fight him only by turning his daughter into a demon of drought and scorched earth. The woman says that after she heard all this, she had a bad feeling. She adds that she feels like something terrible is going to happen to this world. Taking his wife's hand, the man says that she is right and that his arrival in this world was strange. And it is precisely in this that he sees the reason why they must certainly become as strong as possible. No says that they should be grateful to the Daniels for the fact that they started all the problems. He adds that in a few days, they will allow them to absorb the legacy of the Ghost King sect. And only by becoming stronger will they be able to protect themselves in the future, and the truth will come out sooner or later. And then the man says that he will also help the woman achieve the formation of the core. When a guess appears in her head, the woman begins to voice it, but falls silent. But still, overcoming herself, she clarifies whether she should just shove it inside. The Celestial is so puzzled by these words that at first he cannot find suitable ones himself. And then he says that this core contains impurities, so it is not a high-quality gold core. No, it says that the surviving lines about cultivation have long lost the correct method of forming the core. Therefore, to improve it, they will have to use a dual cultivation method. The woman agrees to do this and asks what position they will use this time. She quickly corrects herself, saying that she meant what technique they should use. She doesn't respond to this, but her actions cause confusion. He speaks as soon as the core appears in his hand, and the tone of his voice is serious. The man says that he wants to give her only the best, so this process will be painful. But the woman says that as long as he is here, she is not afraid of anything, and suggests that they start quickly. Again, without explaining anything, the man moves on to action. This time the touch of his lips is different, and it causes a thrill in the woman. As soon as they pull away from each other, she asks if this is part of the process or not. No, he apologizes for this and says that he simply couldn't help himself. When he asks her if she is angry, the woman does not answer. But this is only because she herself experiences similar feelings. She thinks that she has never felt this feeling before. She is surprised, but she feels very good. No, he shares her thoughts, thinking that even the divine nectar of the immortal realm cannot compare to this. He wonders if this is the secret to breaking through to the higher realm. Moving away from each other, they say nothing, because words are superfluous now. But still, the woman speaks up first, suggesting to start quickly. At that very moment, her entire body was enveloped in anticipation, which had already become habitual, and No already brings the core to the bottom of her abdomen and slowly begins the fusion. He tries to be extremely careful and gentle, doing everything extremely slowly. But no matter how delicate it is, the process is truly not pleasant. The woman's entire body tenses due to severe pain that is almost unbearable. She tries hard to restrain herself, but against her will, a treacherous groan still escapes her lips. But she can't retreat. She understands this herself, so all she can do is move forward. Pushing off from the horizontal surface, the woman tries to straighten up properly. Her whole body, along with the pain, seem to be filled with a miraculous power. At some point she feels a touch, and then a familiar voice sounds right next to her ear. No, he asks his wife to hold on, saying that he will help her now, and she obediently agrees. Following her husband's advice, the woman begins to invoke the mystical art of ice. No, at this time he is concentrating on a unique spell that requires his pure yang energy. So he uses true fire, because it will help to successfully cleanse the woman's golden core. The cleanup process starts successfully, and the changes take effect immediately. The woman feels all this as if her body were a bare wire. Her sensations are intensified many times over. She almost physically sees what is happening inside, so clear are all her feelings. But the woman's body remains tense because she is still in pain. But now the process is approaching its culmination, and the core is cleared. At that very moment, the first crack appears on the ice created by the woman, and then it all breaks with a loud crash and finally gives the long-awaited relief. Holding the woman tightly in his arms, the celestial being asks how she feels. She says that she now feels as if her body has no weight at all, which is amazing to her. No, he explains why this happens, and the woman trustingly accepts it as a given. He asks her to try to circulate her mana further, because then she will be able to fly. The woman didn't just concentrate, she wants to try to do it now. The Celestial does not take this opportunity away from her, just in case, ensuring her. And, oh miracle, at a certain moment it works out for her, and a cry of amazement escapes from the woman. She literally screams, saying that this is incredible, and she can fly. And Joy, who happened to be nearby at the right time, enthusiastically echoes her mother. Calling the woman an angel, the girl says that she also wants to fly. Distracted by her daughter, the woman instantly loses control of her circulation. Having lost her footing, the woman screams, realizing that she is falling down. But she never manages to meet the ground, and at first she can't believe it. But everything changes as soon as she opens her eyes, and the woman's heart skips a beat. This situation is too difficult for the girl, but she honestly tries to understand it. For her parents, this reaction is touching, and they start laughing. Sometime later, changes also affect the demon from the ghost token. Naturally, this also affects its bearer, the former crime boss, Shine. And Joy suggests that with his new power, he will also be able to turn into ice cream. The creature makes an incomprehensible sound, but the nod of its head makes everything clear. It concentrates and starts a process similar to what Joy did before. The girl exclaims in delight, amazed at the size of the ice Shine created. Well, her parents watch their interaction silently, each thinking about their own things. But then Net tells the woman that they are going to the Denial family, and she asks why. The man says it would be a shame to simply waste their efforts and not squeeze every last drop out of them. This answer makes the woman laugh, and she expresses absolute agreement with him. Sometime later, they wander silently through the city because the two are comfortable in the silence. The woman looks at the shop windows with interest, as if she hadn't been out for a long time. At the moment when the car flies past, the celestial being speaks. He says he never thought the mortal world would become so prosperous. And she is amazed that everything works without mana. The woman explains it as she understands it. Netta is inspired by the idea of technological progress and thinks that he would like to study it all himself. The woman, meanwhile, says that it's time for their daughter to start school, but the man doesn't know what that is. His wife says it is a place where children learn to read, write, and study various sciences. The Celestial is amazed that this is now available to everyone, because before everything was completely different, and he becomes increasingly convinced that this era is truly great. Arriving at their destination, the couple politely knocks on the door. At the same time, opening the gates for them, the butler asks who is there. However, as soon as he saw these two, Var, starting to stutter, asks what they are doing here. No says the Denial family has done a lot for them, so they came in person to express their gratitude. The butler asks him to wait, saying that he must announce their arrival. A little later, Indigo is surprised by the news, asking why these two are here. Daniel, assuming they have come to kill them, asks his mother to call someone. She is about to call her family when a sound calling for silence rolls through the room. It works, and all three pairs of eyes turn in unison to the eldest member of the family. The elderly lady, in her own way, calls on the younger generations to be prudent. Indigo is the first to respond to her words, asking his mother what they should do. Calling them idiots, the woman asks if they have forgotten about the ninefold Soul Eater. Indigo is delighted, agreeing with his mother, but it is clear that he has truly forgotten about him. His wife also suddenly remembers this, suggesting that in this case, they give the guests a worthy reception. The elderly lady asks that the entire provincial bureau be notified so that they can send people to help. And she offers to personally make sure that these two do not leave this place alive. No, his wife and he continue to stand obediently on the other side of the gate all this time. But then they open again, and familiar voices can be heard from within. Almost in unison, they all greet Netta and his wife with great respect. The Celestial expresses admiration for how humble and polite the Ghost King's sect is. Indigo asks permission to inquire what instruction Net will give them today. He says that this is a big statement, and they are only here to ask for help. Daniel can't control himself, so he impulsively asks Netta to repeat his words. Hitting him, Indigo tells her son to shut up, and he gasps in pain and surprise. The man says that their family will help those in need and asks them to come inside. He adds that they can even feel free to ask for whatever they need. The celestial being didn't even think of denying himself anything, but he responded with calm and restrained consent. When he and his wife pass by, no one dares even look them in the eye, behaving incredibly submissively. And only Indigo can't contain himself because the gloating joy bursts out of him. And all because, as soon as they stepped over the threshold, these two doomed themselves to a terrible fate. As soon as the barrier covers the estate, the atmosphere around it instantly changes. The naive woman cannot believe it, so she screams in fear. Turning to her husband, she asks him where they went. And the celestial being says that, as he thought, they are digging their own graves. The woman asks Neda how these people could just disappear. The man says it was a technique, and it confuses all five senses. An otherworldly voice comes from somewhere, saying that it doesn't matter whether she is familiar with this technique or not. This is a ninefold soul eater from the underworld that the Denial family has kept for 100 years. It is inhabited by tens of thousands of vengeful spirits, and now they will experience the torment of being consumed by their ghosts. The woman gets tired of listening to these intimidations and chooses to act. She rejoices when her elemental projectiles pierce through the entity. However, this joy is not destined to last long. All wounds quickly heal. The woman begins to panic, asking her husband if her spells are really useless against these spirits, and he responds with a soft agreement, saying that ordinary spells will not particularly harm them. The man continues, saying that these creatures do not have physical bodies, and then he begins to talk about the only method that is suitable for cleansing them, and this is the use of pure yang energy, true life energy. And indeed, even though the spirits approach the celestial being, they cannot do anything to him. Meanwhile, he erects the supreme golden shield of light of yang energy. One of the spirits laughs, asking Net if he really thinks that some small shield will save him. He asks if he can really cleanse each of these tens of thousands of evil spirits. However, the man only chuckled self-confidently, completely ignoring the angry voices. One of the men asks his mother what they are doing, because this is only bringing their death closer. And the old lady curses rudely, uttering words about the devourer's core. Indigo reassures her, believing that the spirits will swallow these fools before they reach the core. And then Daniel screams, turning to his father with the words that no, he is going up, straight to the core. Indigo is amazed by this, because only someone who has the heavenly eye can see the core. The man tries to ask how he does it, but the words get stuck in his throat at the very beginning of the sentence. Sometime later, No says that if the core is destroyed, the devourer becomes useless. And his woman asks what this devourer core is anyway. No, he says that in this case the devourer is like a spell that we cast, and he needs an artifact. This is a necessary condition for both storing mana and providing exit paths for the flow of that mana. But the most important part is the switch that activates the devourer and starts its power. No, he says that the devourer is actually a system for controlling tens of thousands of ghosts. His wife asks him what he thinks will happen if she breaks this thing. He replies that all these spirits were imprisoned here by the Denial family. They are full of agony and rage. And he, in turn, asks his woman what she thinks will happen then. Along with the crack in the artifact, a crack also appears in the barrier that projects it. And at the same moment, a stream of heavy energy begins to swirl through this chip. The first of the denials to feel this is the elderly lady, who begins to worry about the barrier. And it collapses with a crash, no longer able to withstand such a strong pressure. And the angry souls immediately notice their new victims, turning to them like hungry dogs. One single question begins to sound around family members. He expresses bewilderment, pain, and annoyance at the same time, and among all the souls, one known to us reigns supreme. Imbued with otherworldly energy, Light's voice demands that his life be returned, and the woman gasps in fear.